Orcs loved by Celeste King, Orc warriors of Protheka.
Eroth, what's the one thing that can help people put aside their differences and come together?
Money, of course.
No, not money. Something intangible that you can't touch.
Well, then power.
No, Eroth. It's a little four-letter word starting with L.
Ah, life.
Love, Eroth. I'm talking about love bringing people together.
What brought us together was the limitless digital shelves of books on worldsofprotheka.com. The sweet sound of that 30% discount going through when you use code YouTube30. There's nothing like it.
That may be, but what is it that keeps us together?
Telling stories.
Ugh, you're hopeless.
You're listening to Celeste King's Orcs Love. Chapter 1. Tarod. We're fucked if we just sit on our hands and let those dark elf bastards grow their numbers more. I roar at Dog the Ruthless, chieftain of the Beheader clan, while he sits there looking at me like I'm the unreasonable one. Our people are dying. The humans we've allied ourselves with are dying. And you expect me to do what? Wait and see how it turns out. I slap my hand down on the table, the sound of it echoing through the council chamber. I'm sick and tired of sitting around waiting for the Dark Elves to make their move. We are spending way too much time on the defensive. Terod, I'm just as angry as you are, Dog says, his voice calm. How can he be this calm? I highly fucking doubt it. I'm not usually the hot-headed type. I don't just go off like this for no reason. But it seems like a waste of our time and energy to be stuck in these endless circular debates. Considering all the work that went into first unifying the orc tribes and then allying with the humans, I thought maybe the council would want to do something with all that. But instead, they're just waiting, twiddling their thumbs, and Dog dares to think his anger is a match for mine. I'm a proud warrior. I fight, but not in a rage. But listening to the council advocate that we just sit on our hands while the Dark Elves continue to winnow down our numbers is something I can't stand. We have to wait, Dog says. This battle requires strategy. I understand the need for strategy, especially against the Dark Elves. I preferred it when we were fighting the humans and each other. It's not that I don't want there to be peace. Peace is fine. But when fighting humans and orcs, the battle is a straightforward affair. Your strategy is simple. Outposition and overpower the enemy. There's a clean beauty and elegance to that type of fight. It's not messy. Besides all the blood and guts, that is. Dark Elves complicate things. They have their blasted magic, and combined with their devious nature, there are other enemies I'd much rather be fighting. There's honor in combat, in fighting to survive, and even at their worst, most humans are still an honorable enemy. Dark Elves have no honor. They are sadistic and cruel. There are times when they could kill you, but they'll wait just so that you have a sliver of hope before they smash you to pieces. They don't just want to defeat you as an enemy. They want to break you first. I miss the simpler times, and I'd choose to fight any other enemy, but not to the point where I'm going to just sit by and let them continue to kill people. Are you calling for strategy, or are you just being a coward? We haven't fought this foe in our lifetimes, but we know enough from the stories passed down by our fathers and grandfathers what it was like. We can't let them get a foothold in this world. The orcs had a generation without conflict with the Dark Elves. I grew up hearing the stories about how they tried to brutally exterminate my race. When they started showing up on Earth a while ago, it meant things had to change. We allied with the humans and started to learn to use their guns. While an orc's hide can only be pierced by mithril, the elves' magic has been their greatest protection. But there's something about the humans' guns that disrupts their magic, punching through their magical shields and weakening them. Or more accurately, the bullets the guns fire. Lead seems to negate most magic. The metal is too soft to punch their armor, but the humans do something to the bullets that make the guns still effective. I'm not sure of the whys or hows. All I need to know is that you point the loud end at Dark Elves and pull the trigger. I still find the guns clumsy and awkward to use, but I'm practicing more and more, and I make sure my soldiers do as well. As a general of the Great War God tribe, it's my responsibility to prepare them for this war. But this damned council keeps telling me to wait. Don't you dare question my honor, Dog shouts, standing to his feet. It's good to know there might still be some fire in his heart. The greatest honor one can attain is victory in battle. There's no honor to be had in defeat. You go off now, all you're going to do is get your people killed. And how long does honor dictate that we wait? I ask. This has gone on more than I'd like. How long do you expect me to abide by the treaty when I'm told to sit and wait, as more of my clanmates are killed every day? What do I tell our human allies when they ask why I failed to protect them? We can't share everything with all our allies, Dog says. You're keeping secrets? And you dare speak of honor? When fighting an enemy like the Dark Elves, we have to be careful, he growls. I've hit a sore spot. We are waiting for intelligence on how the Dark Elves are bringing more of their troops here. Then he sighs, finally revealing some of the plan he has clearly already laid out. This information cannot leave these chambers. We have human spies within the Dark Elf territories. Some have even been put in the employ of nobles. The idea that Dark Elf nobles have come to Earth manages to be more upsetting than just those bastards befouling this planet with their presence. All Dark Elves have a connection to magic, but the nobles weave spells with such ease and to such devastating effect. We only recently learned that they were on Earth as well, when one attacked Brar the Vindicator. It's incredibly disheartening because we don't know why the Dark Elf magic works on Earth, but Orc magic doesn't. Even back on Protheka, Dark Elf magic was strong, but Orcs could learn to wield such power. Once we fled to Earth, our magic dwindled away until it was all but useless. Now we are fighting at a severe disadvantage, but that doesn't mean we shouldn't still fight. So, until your spy finds out something, we are just going to what? Dig more graves? I ask. Dog is my ally. I have to keep reminding myself of that. Perhaps after we deal with the Dark Elves, we will go back to fighting each other. I don't know. But for now, we are on the same side. We will continue to defend ourselves, but we have to give our spies time. The last intelligence report smuggled out of Dark Elf territory shows one of them had found a closely guarded chamber. That could be where they have the portal. If we can find it and destroy it, we can save our people. Spies. I understand the necessity when fighting an enemy like the Dark Elves, but I don't like having to rely on them. If we know where this chamber is, why aren't we just attacking their base right now? I'm getting frustrated. It feels like he's still holding back information, or maybe he doesn't know. Aquida the Wise, chieftain of the Golden Arrow clan, stands and says, "Because while we can gather troops and storm the castle, we are going to lose people in that battle, and we don't want to waste our opportunity to take out something that could just be where they keep the spoils of war or something like that. We don't have the resources to attempt to strike at their heart unless we know we are actually aimed at their heart." Aquida's reasoning makes sense, at least enough that I don't feel the need to throttle him. I stop and take a deep breath. Dog, perhaps I'm not too proud of a man to say I'm sorry, but my attempt to apologize is cut short when one of my soldiers bursts into the chamber. His eyes are wide with panic and sweat pours down his face. "General, something happened!"
Chapter 2. Fiona. I continue to pluck the harp strings as Lady Hanaya's eyes start to drift close. "I don't know why I'm so tired lately," she says. "You work so hard, my lady. You deserve your rest." "What I deserve is a good fucking orgy, but I'm too tired for that." The Dark Elf noblewoman yawns. What's the use in being serviced while I'm unconscious? Strumming out a few more notes, I hope my playing will calm her and help her drift off to sleep. Though, tonight, she's fading much faster than usual. It might have something to do with the cubic fuck-ton of sleeping pills I crushed up and dissolved in her wine. Finding the correct dosage required some trial and error. There's still a lot we don't understand about Dark Elf physiology. I didn't even know if the sleeping pills were going to work on her at all. I had to experiment for over a month by steadily increasing the dosage and only testing it every few days. But then I started to run out and decided if she dies, she dies. The amount I gave her tonight would have killed a human quickly. But considering how she gently drifts off to sleep, I'm guessing she'll probably live. She mumbles something that I can't make out. I weigh whether it's better to let her drift or to let her sleep. Which would anger her more, me ignoring her or me waking her? She's been a good source for intelligence over the last 3 months. I was placed with her because she likes music, and I learned to play the harp as a kid. My mother insisted on it. Why? I'm not really sure. The world had gone to hell in a handbasket, but she wanted me to know. I guess it paid off. Thanks, Mom. I won't ever get a chance to tell her that, because the Dark Elves killed her and my father when they attacked our settlement. It's been so hard to be among these bastards, while all I want to do is slit all their throats for what their people did to mine. But it was decided the best way to stop the Dark Elves was to figure out how they are getting to Earth. I grew up in a world where orcs were the norm, with stories of how things were before sounding something like fairy tales. Though not quite. I like to read actual fairy tales. But the stories of heroic knights slaying dragons and rescuing damsels in distress seem only slightly more far-fetched than a world without orcs. Our people fought for years and would probably still be killing each other if the Dark Elves hadn't shown up and represented an existential threat to both races. After they killed my parents and slaughtered most of my village, I needed to do something about it. My friend Eileen wasn't keen on the idea of me becoming a spy, but she knows me well enough to know that once I set my mind to something, there's little that can be done to dissuade me. So I learned to lie, brushed up on lockpicking, and volunteered. Getting caught by the Dark Elves is easy. Getting caught by the right Dark Elves is the hard part. Working with the human resistance, we were able to determine what Dark Elves were the murderers and which ones were the raiders, and I moved into a settlement that was going to be raided. There wasn't much we could do to stop it, but it got me inside, and I was lucky to be placed with Lady Hanaya. I've heard of how depraved the Dark Elf nobles are, the things they do to humans. Before going on this mission, I found the first halfway decent guy in my unit, Chris, and we had sex. I figured I wanted my first time to be my choice, even if my options were limited. He said he had a thing for black girls, but I guess that thing meant he couldn't last more than a few minutes. Though it turned out not to be necessary. Lady Hanaya appreciated music, and so I've been left unmolested. When I hear her soft, even breathing, I wrap up my song and sneak out of Lady Hanaya's chambers. I pull my black hair back into a ponytail, securing my flyaways with several hairpins. I don't need my hair getting in my face while I'm sneaking around the castle. When I was a little girl, if someone had said I'd be living in a castle when I grew up, I'd have been thrilled. There just weren't any castles in New York. But the Dark Elves built several with their magic not long after they arrived. Poking around the castle in the dark is a risk, but I can't wait any longer to hope I overhear the Dark Elves discussing where the portal is. What I have heard is they have something planned soon. I know that they made a recent breakthrough with the Nullreth process, and expect it won't be long before they're ready to wipe out the orcs and remaining free humans. I don't know what the Nullreth process means, but I think it has something to do with a section of the castle no human servants are allowed in. I think it might be where the portal that they're using is located, but I'm not sure. I'm technically supposed to be in my room when Lady Hanaya is asleep, but as long as the dose of sleeping pills doesn't turn out to be lethal, she should at least be out long enough for me to complete my mission, and if the drugs kill her, then she won't mind if I'm breaking her rules. Either way, I should be gone by the time she wakes up or someone finds her body. That is, of course, as long as I don't get caught. I'd spend some nights studying the guard rotation and patterns if I had more time, but I just don't have that particular luxury. By the time I can smuggle more sleeping pills in to knock Hanaya out, whatever the Dark Elves are doing could be completed, and it'll be too late. I have to get halfway across the castle without being spotted, get to the chamber where I suspect the Nullreth process takes place, get whatever information I need, and get the hell out of here. No problem. Piece of cake. And it's not like the fate of humanity hangs in the balance or anything. No pressure either. I memorised some of the castle's layout from when I was first brought here, and any time Lady Hanaya wanted me to be with her while she went about her business. Sometimes she liked her orgies to have musical accompaniment. I've seen things that I will never be able to unsee, and closing my eyes and only hearing it is somehow worse. I guess things must not be as bad as they possibly could be if I think my mind can come up with something more twisted than all the things the dark elves like to do on the regular. I hear footsteps coming down the hall and dash into an alcove to hide behind a statue just in time to avoid getting spotted. The 2 guards march by me in silence. That felt too close, and part of me wants to just turn back around and play passive spy for a while longer. But there's too much riding on this. After a few more close calls, I make it to the doorway leading to my destination. A large wooden door with an ornate handle and lock. But that shouldn't be too bad. There are very few locks that I can't pick. The lock isn't the problem though, it's the guards. 2 dark elf guards in full armour carrying spears stand in front of the door. I doubt they're going to be up for letting me just waltz right past them, pick the lock and then leave when I've discovered their evil master plan. Chances they'll just hand me the key are even slimmer. I'm going to need to think of something to do, and fast.
Chapter 3. Terod. I and several other council members follow the soldier to the medic tent. Shamans and doctors work over people convulsing in the beds. The place is abuzz with activity as they try to treat the patients. About a dozen orcs and humans. I can do nothing to help, so I do my best to stay out of the way. 3 of the orcs jerking uncontrollably are my soldiers. When 3 more people, a human and 2 orcs, are brought in with the same symptoms, I see the looks of concern that pass between the doctors, shamans, and chieftains. After another hour and another dozen patients, one of the doctors declares he's found the cause, something he calls a waterborne pathogen. Things erupt again as everyone scrambles to tell people to stop using water. The council convenes again, everyone a little on edge. It's hot, and people are thirsty. "What are we going to do?" asks Brar. "We're having all the bases water tested," says a short, balding, pale-skinned human wearing glasses. "Dr. Samuelson, can you tell us anything?" Aquita asks. "We found a treatment for the virus, though one patient didn't make it. Harold Sparks, age 59, died. And while we were able to treat everyone else, we've used a lot of finite resources doing so. If we get another wave of poisonings like this, there will be a lot more than just one death." Then everyone started talking at once, making it hard to tell who was saying what. "We don't know if it's the pump that was poisoned or if it is in the groundwater itself. If that's the case, we're going to need to shutter the base and move our operations." "Well, we need to find out soon. We've already warned everyone to avoid using water until we know more, but if it's a poisoned aquifer, would we have to move? Could we survive on porting water in from one of the nearby rivers?" "That might work for the orcs, but drinking untreated river water can cause humans all kinds of medical issues, giardia, and—" I slam my fist on the table. "Whose job is it to maintain the water here?" I ask. "Unfortunately, our lead engineer was Mr. Sparks," says Dr. Samuelson. "Then I doubt he's the one that poisoned the water. Anyone else involved should be brought here and interrogated." "There's no proof yet it was poisoned," says the doctor. "At least not intentionally. How else could it have happened? Water can be contaminated for dozens of reasons, some completely natural. Just because it could have happened naturally doesn't mean that it did. And the more time we spend talking about it instead of doing something gives any potential culprits more time to cover their tracks." "Tarod has a point," Malik says. "Let's have those individuals with access to the water lines brought in for questioning. Tarod, are you prepared to question them?" I crack my knuckles. "I am. Just question them." "Very well." While they were being retrieved, one of the other human doctors came in with news they'd found the source of the contamination. The technical speak sounded like complete nonsense to me, but from what I understood, someone had connected something to something else, releasing something into the water that made people sick. The overall good news is that it was removed, and the water would be safe to drink soon. I was given the object that had been connected to whatever else that started this whole mess. It looked like a box with a pipe sticking out. Then 4 hours, 3 humans and 2 orcs later, I'm left with a whole lot of nothing. Everyone swore they had nothing to do with it, and they had believable stories that put them somewhere else in the time frame for when the sabotage occurred. When I emerge from the last interrogation, Dog and Moloch are there to greet me. "Did you find out anything?" Dog asks. "I can say those 5 are innocent. Only several hundred more possible dark elf spies to talk to." Oh, I wish it were that simple. But this could even be other orcs or humans. Not everyone is happy about this alliance, Moloch says. "So, what you're saying is, we have no way of finding out who did it?" "No, just that we have enemies from all sides. Do you have the energy for another task?" I hadn't slept in more than a day, but I wasn't going to complain. If Dog is right there, I don't know why he can't do it. But I'm sure Moloch has other plans for him. "What do you need, Elder?" "I need someone to double-check on the guards we just posted at the key infrastructure points on and around the base. We've been lax. Before, we didn't have the numbers needed to be on guard, but I've spoken to the other chieftains and the human leaders. We moved some people around and can make this work. I'll see to it that it's done." Moloch tells me where the new guards are to be stationed before he walks off, leaning heavily on his walking stick. As far as I know, Moloch is the last surviving orc with even childhood memories of Protheka. When he dies and his days can't be many more, all our people will have will be the stories of our homeland. That is, of course, if there are any of us left. "Stay vigilant," Dog says before turning and following the old orc out of the building. Another few hours pass in the dull tedium of the task. But it's important. We have been lax in our security. I finish checking the outside patrolling guards, making sure they understand their new duties and routes. Finally finished, I look up and see the moon is high. It's late. I need sleep. I'm about to turn back to base when I feel something. It's that deep warrior and hunter instinct that tells you you're being watched. I turn and see something move in the shadows. Whatever it is, it sees me watching and bolts into the forest. The guards I last talked with are too far away. "Intruder!" I shout, hoping someone will hear me and come to my aid. I chase after the fleeing figure. Something feels off about it. It's too small to be an orc, but it doesn't smell like a human. It doesn't smell like anything at all. Then the figure gets to a break in the trees, cutting across a small clearing, and I finally get a good look at it. It's a little bigger than a human and has pointed ears. But its skin is pale like some of the humans I've met, not the black, gray, and dark purple shades of the dark elves. Overall, the body shape is like that of a human woman, with her breast and hips more pronounced. But then I see her face. While she has 2 eyes, a nose, and a mouth, her features are misshapen and malformed, like someone tried to recreate the human face out of candle wax, but then decided to melt parts of it and smash others. It's hideous. Chasing after it, I wonder what it could possibly be. Then I remember the stories of the nature elves. Back on Protheka, there weren't just dark elves otherwise. We just call them elves. There were also the nature elves whose magic let them manipulate the natural world around them. They opposed the dark elves, but from the tales I heard, the dark elves did horrible experiments on them to try to steal their magic. And supposedly, the dark elves went so far that the nature elves lost all their abilities, providing no use to their captors anymore, and the nature elves were wiped out. But perhaps they didn't all die. Maybe some survived, and they fled to Earth like us. Did they still have their magic? Maybe that's why I couldn't smell them. I could smell nature, and what else would a nature elf smell like but nature itself? "Hey, wait!" I call, running harder to catch up. If she is a potential ally against the dark elves, then I wasn't going to let her go without at least talking to her.
Chapter 4. Fiona. I don't know what is on the other side of that door. It could be everything I need or just a whole lot of trouble for nothing. but I'm not going to know until I open it up. It might be more tricky if the lock is magical, but not impossible to spring. I just need to get rid of the damn guards. The hall is shaped in such a way that it makes sneaking up on them impossible. They have clear lines of sight of all available approaches. It is a very efficient bit of architecture. It must be nice to construct buildings with magic and just mould the rooms to your purposes on the fly. If you want a hallway that leads to a door where no one can slip past your guards, then you just think it into existence. Or at least that's what I'd imagine it to be like. Trying to wrap your brain around magic is difficult. Maybe it's easier if you can actually use it, but with no experience of what it's like, I have no frame of reference. If sneaking up behind them isn't an option, and I'd get myself killed in a direct conflict with two highly trained, fully armed and armoured dark elf guards, I had to think of something else. Lie. I go back the way I came and then walk down the hallway with purpose, looking right at the guards. Once it's obvious I'm not turning, they level their spears at me. "What business do you have here?" the one on the left says. I hate the way dark elves are so pretty. Looking at them, it's almost painful how gorgeous they are, and these two are no exception, and all dark elves know it. But beauty and goodness are two separate things. Dark elves aren't good. They're evil, manipulative bastards with a sadistic streak and a penchant for debauchery. They're heartless and perverted creatures. It makes them dangerous to be around, especially since they can be very capricious and change moods without a moment's notice. But they're also predictable in a way. They're creatures of impulse. If you're smart, you can use all that against them. I was sent by Lady Hanaya to invite you two to her chambers. The one on the right eyes me suspiciously. What is it the Lady Hanaya wants from us that can't wait? I drudge up every embarrassing, awkward memory that I have, so that my discomfort looks genuine. Are you really going to make me say it? Say what? The left guard asks, leaning in like he can drink my embarrassment. I can tell he's happy to see me so upset by this. The Lady Hanaya wants discretion in these matters, I say barely above a whisper. Speak up, human, the right guard orders. I've been asked to keep the lady's confidence. I don't wish to violate that by speaking too loudly. May I approach? I try my best to shrink in on myself, like if I can occupy the least possible amount of physical space, then maybe I'm not a threat. Keep your hands where I can see them. No sudden movements. The guard on the right is smart. Smarter than I'd like. He's suspicious of me. I don't think I even register as a threat to the guard on the left. To him, I'm just some dumb human girl who can't deliver a message. I approach slowly. If I were slightly better at hand-to-hand combat, I might be considered close enough to be dangerous. But I'm just okay in a fight, and I don't have any hidden blades or, even better, a gun. So instead, I stick to using my words as weapons. She sent out her servants to look for some soldiers or guards who might be interested in helping her have some fun this evening. You understand why she'd want me to be discreet. One of the things you learn quickly about the Dark Elves is their bizarre social structures. They have what is supposed to be a strict caste system. There are the Kuzuth, the nobles who rule over the others. The Miu are the soldiers charged with defending them. And then they have the Zagfer, who are the servants. There are other castes for artists and merchants, but they haven't brought any of those with them. That might be why my ability to play the harp, as well as a few other musical talents, was so sought after by Lady Hanaya. One of the rules of the caste system is that you're not supposed to mix with the other castes. But even though they come from some other world, one universal truth binds humans and dark elves. The rich and powerful will do whatever the fuck they want. And considering that the dark elves are fans of raunchy sex parties, when there's a limited number of nobles, the math doesn't work out, and they'll do what they want to get off. It's even more difficult for the dark elves on Earth to get an orgy on since the nobles here all seem to be related. It's the dirty, not-so-secret of the castle that the nobles are fucking the soldiers and servants. Dark elves enjoy treating humans like sex toys, but that doesn't mean they only want to fuck humans. That's especially true for the noble ladies, since dark elves are just bigger in general than humans, and I've yet to hear of a dark elf noblewoman who isn't a bit of a size queen. The guard on the left seems like he's ready to go. We shouldn't keep her ladyship waiting, he says. You go and see if it's true and let me know. It would be just my luck to find the one dark elf in the castle with a genuine sense of duty to anything other than his own pleasure, but I can see he is tempted. She did want me to let you know that it's first come, first serve, when all her... I cleared my throat. When all her needs are filled, the door will be closed, so I doubt you have time to confirm and come back. Okay, lead the way. This motherfucker is getting on my last nerve, but I let the tears start to fall. I don't expect his sympathy, but I want him to think I'm scared. But she wanted 3. If I come back before finding at least 3, and if the others she sent failed, she'll whip me for sure. She wanted all her needs filled. I have to find one more person, or at least try before the others do. He grabs my arm and says, "What do I care if you're whipped?" Well, I would have to tell her who made me turn around without carrying out her wishes. Go on then, he says, releasing me. I continue down the hall, but I see that they've both left when I look over my shoulder. Finally, I need to move fast. When they come to a locked door, they'll think they weren't quick enough. Maybe they'll argue about whose fault it is that they missed a chance to fuck a noblewoman, but that might buy me only another few minutes. I run back and check the lock. It doesn't appear to have rune work, so there is no magic. Perfect. I pull out 2 of my hairpins that I've already modified ahead of time to be a rack and tension tool. As ornate as the lock looked, it takes less than a minute to crack it. I open the door just enough to sneak inside and close it behind me. I stand there for a moment in total darkness before nearly jumping out of my skin when torches burst into life, illuminating the descending staircase in front of me. The dark elves don't really understand technology. They rely on magic for everything. So, some sort of spell detected movement or something and set all the torches ablaze with pale green firelight. I'd like to proceed with caution, but I need to get moving before the guards come back with a case of blue balls.
Chapter 5. Tarod. Wait, stop, I don't want to hurt you. The nature elf ignores my shouting and just keeps running. From all the stories, orcs and nature elves had been allies. It wasn't too far off from the human and orc alliance. They had a common enemy that wanted to kill them, so they banded together. So then why is this woman running away from me? Did something happen on Protheka? Did her people re-emerge, and the orcs that hadn't crossed over attacked them? As I chase her down, I have so many more questions than I do answers, and that bothers me. I need to talk to this woman. It's not an exaggeration to say that my people's lives could depend on my actions here. We can help. Stop running. She looks back at me, and I don't understand her facial expression at all. Her face is too misshapen. Some say that the way the dark elf experiments disfigured the nature elves was no accidental side effect, but was intentional. The dark elves are a vain people, and all the legends say the nature elves were the most beautiful creatures in all of Protheka. The dark elves couldn't stand that, so they made the process even more brutal to twist the bodies while trying to steal nature magic. I don't know. It'd be really helpful if I had someone who might be willing to answer questions about that. I managed to close the distance between us before she crosses the clearing. Tackling a potential ally isn't the best way to start a diplomatic relationship. Still, sometimes you just have to work with what you have. So, tackling her, it is then. I try to do it as delicately as possible, bracing my body so that when we hit the ground, I'm taking the brunt of the impact rather than the fragile nature elf. When we finally stop rolling in the dirt, I say, I told you to stop. I don't want to hurt you, but we need to talk. It's true. I don't want to hurt her. She, however, doesn't seem to be too worried about hurting me when she whirls around and punches me in the chest. I've been hit before plenty of times. I'm a warrior. I'm used to it. This, though, feels like getting hit with a battering ram. The force of it is enough to send me backward, nearly taking me off my feet. Humans don't hit like that. Dark elves don't hit like that. There are a few orcs that can hit with that force, but not many. But most importantly, nature elves don't hit like that. Or at least they're not supposed to, according to the stories. From everything I heard, they were physically weaker than the dark elves. If they were going to hurt you, they made plants and animals do it for them or summoned elemental magics. With me off of her, she scrambles to her feet. Then she raises her fist at me like she's ready to fight. This is not going how I wanted it to go. I've had a long, hard day with everything that happened since the council meeting started. I didn't wake up with the intention of fighting someone who could be the sole surviving member of a once powerful race of beings. When my morning started, my biggest concern was figuring out why the council wanted me to just sit on my hands. The answer that we have a spy network and we're waiting for intelligence from them wasn't the answer that I wanted, but I was going to accept it. That was my big mental task for the day. I don't really have the energy left to try to decipher this woman's motivations and methods. I'm not a diplomat, and I'm really tired. Listen, I don't want to fight you. I just want to talk, I say, holding up my hands, palms out. But if you don't stop with this bullshit, I'm going to lose my patience. I wish I could read her facial expressions because I see the way it shifts, but I don't know if it's a good or a bad thing. Do you talk? Can you understand me? She nods. I'm Tarod. I'm a general of the... Then I feel it, the bite of a blade in my side. I realized too late that she wasn't nodding to answer my question. She was signaling an ally. I whirl around, catching my attacker with the back of my fist, sending them sprawling. It's another nature elf. I pull the blade out and look at it, shocked. For one thing, I didn't hear anyone coming. Looking at the one who just stabbed me, I think it's a man. Then I look back down at the blade, my mind feeling slow. I've been already struggling with lack of sleep, but this hits me all at once. Adrenaline should kick in and make me feel more alert, not less. The wound isn't deep. I haven't lost enough blood to warrant this feeling. Then I realize the blade has to be mithril, which makes no sense since the nature elves didn't forge blades and couldn't wield them anyway. Mithril is the only thing that can pierce an orc's hide, but it burns nature elves just to touch the stuff. Or at least that's what I was told. I look between the two creatures that I'm really starting to doubt are nature elves, but even my head turn is slow like I'm moving through thick mud. I try to take a step back, but my legs give out from under me and I fall on my back. My limbs feel heavy and almost distant, like my body is somewhere else and my mind is wrapped in fog. Everything starts getting dark. It is already night, but it feels like the stars are going out. I have to move. I can't just lay here on my back at the mercy of these things I thought were nature elves. But my body isn't responding at all. Above the increasingly dense fog of my thoughts, one word floats to the top of my mind. Poison. The blade must have been poisoned. Then it feels like I'm floating. No. Floating hurts less and doesn't require someone pulling on your arms. I tilt my head back and see the not nature elves have taken me by the arms and are dragging me. Maybe it's because I have nothing else I can do at the moment but watch with rapidly dimming vision. But for the first time I notice the man's hand, his left one. He has a gold band, though it bites into the flesh like his hand got bigger while he was wearing it. Something about that sticks in my brain, but it feels foggy and strange. Then I remember I've seen humans wearing rings like this. Wedding rings. It's part of their mating customs. They exchange rings. It's a silly thing, but inoffensive. Did a human marry this thing? Why can't my brain work? Why can't my limbs work? Oh, right. Poison. Shit. I've been poisoned. I see the blade tucked into the woman's belt now. Why don't they just kill me with it already? What would be the point of dragging me deeper and deeper into the woods? I want to close my eyes and just sleep. I've been up too long with no sleep. A rest sounds good. Maybe they're taking me somewhere to do that. That would be nice of them. But then why did they stab me first? I guess it doesn't matter. I'm just going to close my eyes and worry about that later.
Chapter 6. Fiona. As I walk down the stairs, I try to move swiftly but carefully and quietly, erring on the latter. My heart pounds in my chest so loud that it makes it hard to keep my ears out for any other guards or dark elves. Once I get to the bottom of the stairs, the torches start getting more and more spaced out as the room opens up. I was expecting to find a vast, swirling portal, or some kind of big, empty doorway where a portal could open up. But instead, I'm looking at what appears to be a chemistry set on steroids that had a baby with a witch's hut. There are tubes and vials full of various liquids and strange runes carved into a vat, collecting something at the end of what looks like a long and involved process. Is this what they use to make the portal work? Though, I'm starting to think this room and the Nullreth process have nothing to do with the portals or how they are bringing more dark elves to Earth. I step closer. The air has an acrid tang to it that makes me want to gag. What could this all be, and why would whatever it is be the key to the dark elves taking over Earth? I can't make heads or tails of what any of this does. I see what looks like a large box covered in a tarp in the centre of the room. Maybe they're shipping whatever this stuff is out. I don't know, but I decide to go check it out. I circle the box. It looks like they tied the tarp down on this thing. I wish I'd brought a knife or something. But then I see a corner where I can pull up the tarp edge and take a look. When I do, I recoil in horror as it turns out not to be a box but a cage. And the thing in the cage looks like something out of my nightmares. Vaguely human-shaped with ears like an elf, but the facial features are horrifyingly mismatched and misshapen. Parts of the skin look like dripping candle wax, while others look like open sores. When the thing slams against the cage, coming for me, I stumble back, opening my mouth to scream, but suddenly there's a hand over my mouth as someone grabs me from behind. I try to swing my elbow back, but too late do I realise they've pulled me into them, and there are metal bars pressed between us. Instead of my elbow connecting with someone's soft stomach, it's solid metal, and my whole arm goes numb and tingly. Shh, lady, don't yell. I'm not going to hurt you, a man's voice whispers in my ear. Do you understand? Nod if you understand. I nod my head. I'm going to release you now. Do not scream. The man releases me and I whirl around. Remember, don't scream, he says as he holds up his hands over his misshapen face. I'm glad he reminded me with the thing in the other cage grunting at me. I might have just screamed again. I look at him and say, What? What are you? Not the most polite question, but I nearly peed myself. I'm too scared to be polite. I'm a human. Or at least, I was. My name is Danny. What's yours? Fiona. Okay, Fiona. You need to get the hell out of here before they come back and find you sneaking around. I don't want you to get hurt. I pull my hairpin out and drop to one knee at his cage door. What the hell are you doing? I said to get out of here. I'm freeing you, I say as the door lock pops open. Are there others? You don't understand. You can't help us. Is that one human too? I ask, pointing to the other cage. With the tarp back down, the creature or person inside seems to have calmed down. Stop! You need to listen. He groans and grabs his head. What's wrong? I take a step forward, but Danny throws a hand up and says, Don't touch me. I don't want to hurt you. What? I don't know how long I have left before I can't stop it. I take a step back, careful not to bump into the cage on the floor. What are you talking about? This whole setup, Danny says, gesturing widely, isn't just about making humans look like me, or turning them into beasts like... Whatever the dark elves did to his face makes it hard for me to figure out what his facial expressions mean, but I think he might be crying. I really can't tell. They want strong, obedient soldiers. I take a few more steps back, moving slowly so I can feel behind me and not trip, but also not take my eyes off of him. And are you feeling obedient? I'm fighting. Oh God, it hurts. I'm fighting it. But I feel myself slipping away a bit more every day. Right now, my instincts are telling me to tear your fucking throat out. But I've got a handle on it, I think. Touching you is a bad idea. It seems to have sparked the programming. Stay back, and we're probably good. Maybe. The lack of certainty isn't exactly inspiring. Are there more of you? There are more cages further back. Then he seems to realise what I intend, and his voice hardens. Don't even think about it. Those are worse off than me. Too far gone. I don't think there's much left of them. I can free you, and we can get you help, I offer, unable to stomach leaving them behind after what they've been through. There must be some way to undo this. He shakes his head. They kept us out here because we were the failures. They haven't exactly worked out all the bugs yet. His eyes dart down to the cage. I heard them talking, and they have other plans to make improvements. It's too late for us, though. He walks up to the cage on the floor and goes to lift the tarp. What are you... But the person, or what was once a person inside, doesn't freak out on him. And while his facial expressions are hard to read, I can clearly see the sadness in his eyes. Who are they? My sister. When I resisted too long, they gave her an extra dose of that. He pointed at one of the vats collecting the end product. Nolreth wants us to submit. By will or force, he doesn't care. There's that word again. I realise I have found what I was looking for, but it wasn't what I expected. Is this the Nolreth process? Nolreth Shrendra's process, Danny says. That's the noble who did all this. His eyes flit to mine, and his eyes harden. He's done talking about the horrors he's witnessed. That much I can see. Instead, he gestures out with his arm. Over there, on the far wall is a desk. It has his research notes. Research notes? I'm not keeping up with his sudden change in conversation. I heard them talking about other labs. His voice is clipped, rushed. You have to take it and get it out of here. Others need to know of Nolreth's process, of his plans. I nod. I'll get them to the right person. His eyes lock on mine again, the only body language I can understand from his mangled form. You have to be careful. The Dark Elves have spies in the Alliance. What? I shouldn't be that surprised, but who would ally themselves with the Dark Elves? Is it a human or an orc? I don't know. Shaking my head, I walk to the desk. I've been down here too long already, and Danny's provided me with invaluable information that I need before I'm found. The drawers are locked, but the lock is a joke, and I've barely got my tools in before it pops. I stuff the hidden pockets in my jacket with every last bit of paper in the desk I can find. It's all written in Dark Elf, and I can't read a word of it, but someone might. And there's a map. This is huge. I turn and see he's pulled a torch from the wall. What are you going to do? You should go, Danny says as he walks towards the rune-marked vat. Danny. Fiona, you have to get that information out of here. I don't have long. But you... Fiona, go! I can feel it. It's growing inside me. If you're not out of here soon, I won't have enough of me left to destroy this place. I might not have enough to stop myself from killing you. Now go! There's so much I still don't know, but I know exactly how his plan ends. I turn and run up the stairs. I open the door just enough to see if the coast is clear, and then I start walking with purpose, so no one will stop me. I turn to look behind me. When the door blows right off its hinges, I barely dodge the splintered wood and shards of metal. The fire coming up from the basement spreads towards me and I run. I have to get out of here.
Chapter 7. Tarod. I wake up and my eyelids weigh a ton, but I manage to open my eyes and look around me. I'm in a cage, When I try to move, though, the rest of my body doesn't respond. Then pieces start to come together, and I remember getting attacked by the not-nature elves. I was poisoned. I have vague memories of some of the delirious thoughts that went through my head just before I blacked out. I don't know where I am, but I see a river in the forest beyond. One patch of forest can be pretty indistinct from another, but if you travel the same woods often enough, you find natural landmarks that might not even be that distinct to other people. I see a clump of trees that sort of looks like a hokkien standing on its head, and I realize I must not have been out long because we are still close to the base, less than an hour on foot. But as the cage is bumped around, I realize I'm in a carriage being pulled by some beast of burden. It could be hokkien, but I don't know. I still can't lift my head. I know the path they're taking. If I can stay alert and manage my escape, I can find my way back to base. I stay still, feigning that I remain unconscious, and try my best to observe what's going on around me. I can hear at least 2 dark elves talking. Or it could be those things if they talk like the dark elves do. I doubt it, though. There's just something in the song-like nature of dark elf speech that I can't imagine coming out of those things' misshapen mouths. It's been a while since we actually captured an orc alive, says one. They make such horrible prisoners, very unruly. Good thing we got that one in chains. Chains. I force my body to cooperate, looking down at my hands and feet to see that I am bound. Even though I can't move my arms and legs at all, I know it would be useless. I can smell the mithril. The stuff is unbreakable. They're right that orcs don't make good prisoners. But then why make mithril chains? It seems like a waste when they could just make it into arrows to kill us with. The thought sends a chill down my spine. Why am I not dead? In most circumstances, not being dead is good news. But the dark elves ruin everything. It turns the good news that I'm still drawing breath into something perilous. But I'm not planning on dying. Escape has to be the option. But since I'm in these chains, I have to wait for my moment. Someone has to have a key. I just need to bide my time and plan. I almost roll my eyes at how much I sound like dog now, but I force my mind to clear and soak in every small interaction between the not-nature elves. It's quiet for most of the ride, and the sky starts to lighten by the time anything happens that might give me that chance. The carriage stops. I close my eyes again and try to stay limp. Still out, is he? Wake up, sunshine. Ugly motherless sons of bitches, aren't they? The humans should thank us for killing them. The cage door opens. Wake up! I don't move. Did you dose the knife before you gave it to the freaks? Yeah. How much? He should be awake by now. Maybe he's just a heavy sleeper. Then I feel the chain connecting my wrist and ankle shackles get pulled on. I'm dragged across the cage floor until I tumble out onto the grass. But I stay limp. I'm waiting for my moment. Even though I don't have a lot of movement with the chains, I have a bit more space to work with outside the cage. The next time one of them tries to drag the chain, I can grab their hand and maybe get them in a chokehold or something. But the flaw in my plan presents itself rather quickly once I don't hear them get any closer, and still feel myself lifted off the ground. Well, shit. Why drag a prisoner around with your own 2 hands when you can do it with magic? I hate these dark elf bastards and their magic. I realize a second too late what they are about to do, and I don't have the time to get a breath of air before my head goes under the surface of the water. I come up sputtering and gasping for air. I see the 2 dark elves I heard talking, one of which has his hand out, controlling whatever spell he's using to hold my chains. There's another in the driver's seat and at least half a dozen of those things with them. Are you awake, orc? No amount of beauty rest is going to fix your level of ugly, the caster yells at me. Eat shit and die, you... I stop and breathe just in time for my head to go under the water again. Then I'm lifted higher and higher into the air and dropped. Just before I hit the ground, the chain is seized by magic again, and it feels like my arms and legs might be ripped from their sockets. The caster holds me still while his buddy starts kicking me. While an orc's skin is impenetrable to all but magic and mithril, that doesn't mean our insides are going to survive. Getting kicked in the gut still hurts. Ribs can still break. Sure, we orcs can heal well, but that doesn't make getting the metal-tipped boots of the dark elves tickle. They don't ask me questions. They don't do much but torture me and laugh. It's pointless cruelty for its own sake. I don't scream. I don't yell. I just keep my mouth shut. I won't give them the satisfaction. After, when nearly every inch of me feels like one big bruise, they toss me back into the cage. When the other two join the driver, he asks, "What was that for?" "We were told to kill some time. What else are we going to do for fun? The freaks can't or don't care what we do to them. Even if he's silent and won't scream for us, at least we know he feels something." "Yes, but we were told to bring the orc to base. We just need him to delay his friends a bit. We've already sent word that we'd like to make a prisoner exchange." "Do the orcs keep prisoners?" "Who knows? We just need to keep them confused a bit. Then the next batch of freaks should be ready." The carriage moves on, and I see the freaks run alongside the carriage. They're fast. The one I caught in the woods wanted to get caught or something because there she is, running beside the carriage and not even breaking a sweat. Do these things sweat? I pick up the landmarks as we go until we get to a large mansion. The elves have the freaks drag me inside, and waiting just inside the door is a tall, dark elf. The soldier who beat the shit out of me says, "My lord, we brought you a present. A general. Great, a noble. A little early, aren't you?" "Yes, we know this moves the timetable up, but when one of their generals followed a freak, we thought we might as well grab him while he was all alone." The noble looks down at me. "You get to be our guest for a while, then." "Go fuck yourself," I say, and then spit on his boots. He just snaps his fingers and points. The freaks start punching me until he whistles. "Go toss him in the dungeon. Come along, children. There's work to do." The dark elf caster from before uses his magic to hold the chain up as they march me down the hall while the freaks scamper off after the noble, like a group of puppies trying to earn approval from their master. It's sick. I don't know what is going on here. All I know is that it's bad news.
Chapter 8. Fiona. It's been 3 days since I fled the castle. The building quickly burning down provided a great distraction. Thanks, Danny. Another person I won't get a chance to thank for real because they're dead. I can't get the image of him out of my head. The way he cried for his sister. The struggle he was in to keep control. I don't know how many more were down there or if any of them survived the fire. If what he said was true, then I feel awful thinking it, but I hope he got them all. I try to decipher the notes, but Dark Elf isn't a language I read. I don't know if there's anyone else who does. Well, anyone who isn't a Dark Elf. But if nothing else, I have a map that I think shows the location of other factories. I still feel like I'm going to be sick every time I think about it. And while what they did to Danny, his sister, and the others made them look hideous, it's not that part that makes me taste bile in the back of my throat. The idea that the Dark Elves can strip away our free will is just a sickeningly terrifying thought. I don't really want to consider what happens after. Danny talked about fighting their control, but what happens after? Are you just gone? Or are you still aware of everything? Do you know you're killing your own people? I need to stop thinking about it. I'm running on so little sleep because every time I close my eyes, I see Danny's face and his sad, sad eyes. Then I hear talking up ahead. I move closer slowly, sneaking through the bushes. It's a group of 3 of them, and they have 6 of the things they turned Danny into with them. I'm ready to back away and keep moving when I hear one of them say, "I can't believe Lord Shrendra didn't skin you alive." Lord Nolreth Shrendra. What? I was being ambitious. Sure, they wanted a chieftain, but when an important orc general falls in your lap, what do? And after we dropped off the general in the dungeon, I talked with Lord Shrendra. He was thrilled to know his freaks can sneak up on orcs. I guess besides giving them those lovely faces, it also makes it so they have no scent. No scent? Orcs have eyesight that's comparable to humans, with a little better night vision, but their sense of smell is much better. Enough that they'd come to rely on it in many ways. If the freaks don't have a scent that stands out, they'd be much better at ambushing orcs. This is bad. It's even more reason to get the information back to the Alliance. But if there is an orc general in captivity, I should do something. At least I should stick around to find out where they're keeping him. Not only would that give me a chance to maybe rescue him, but if I could find out where Nolreth is, then maybe I could put a stop to this thing. Did he happen to tell you when his master plan will be ready, because I'd like to get this fucking thing over with? Sure, killing orcs and humans is fun and all, but I'd like to go home sometime. Oh, you're just worried about what your wife gets up to when you're not around. The conversation devolves into insinuations about who is fucking whose wife behind their backs. It might make for interesting drama if I gave a flying fuck about the happy marriages of dark elves. I wait, hoping they might eventually get back to his question about the timetable for the... It feels wrong to call them freaks. After watching Danny fight against the control, and knowing each one of them was at one point human, it doesn't sit well with me. I decide it's better to think of them as drones. The 6 drones they have with them are just standing there, waiting for orders. They sway slightly as they stand there, but it does seem like they're paying attention. Are they programmed to play lookout? I don't know, and I don't know if I want to find out by testing that theory. But seriously, do we know when this is going to finally happen? Asks the dark elf with the promiscuous wife. Oh, says the first one I heard talking. Yeah, I think he said... I don't know what he says next because the wind shifts, carrying his voice away from me. I'm suddenly upwind from the drones, and just as the thought crosses my mind about how acute their sense of smell is, one of them turns toward me, and I see her malformed nostrils flare. I take a step back, ready to turn and run, when I hear it, the unmistakable clicking sound of a rattlesnake. I look back, and it's coiled, ready to strike. I don't have much choice but to jump in the safest direction possible, straight towards the drones and dark elves. I leap out of the bush, and I can feel the dull thud of the snake's head smacking into the heel of my boot. Luckily, it's sturdy enough that I don't need to worry about snake fangs piercing it. Which is good because I do need to worry about the 6 drones that make a horrible screeching sound and then come running for me. The dark elves look up to see me. They yell something that I can't make out over the shrieking and the sheer heart-thumping terror as 6 former humans turned drones and the dark elves come barreling towards me, triggers my body's natural reflex to get the hell out of there. I'm not going to turn around and try to run back towards the rattlesnake, so I turn left and sprint like I never have before. I make it about 10 paces before a steel grip clamps around my arm, jerking me to a halt so fast it takes my feet out from under me. I turn to see a drone has me. That's a terrifying amount of strength. Makes sense for a soldier meant to go toe-to-toe with an orc. I see its other hand coming towards me, and for a second, I think it's going to kill me, crush my windpipe or something. But instead, it grabs my other arm with a force that feels like it's almost hard enough to shatter my bone. I'm not a fighter. I know how to fight some, but I wouldn't want to rely on it. But I'm scrappy and don't plan on letting this drone me. So, I choose the most effective fighting maneuver I know. Against a man, at least. I kick him square in the nuts. I feel it. The hit connects with enough force it hurts my foot. And this guy, or former guy, doesn't even flinch. Doesn't react in any way. I'm pretty certain that I've done some serious damage downstairs, and he doesn't even make a sound. Do these things not feel pain, or do they just not care? Then a thought hits me worse than any blow I could have landed on a guy who would have felt it. They're not going to kill me. As another drone grabs my feet and carries me over to the dark elves, I realise precisely what my fate is. I'll be made into a drone. The drones drop me to the ground in front of the dark elves. Before I can even try to move, one of them grabs me by the hair and starts dragging me to the carriage. That's when I see them, more humans in a cage in the carriage. This is it. We are all totally and thoroughly fucked. Chapter 9. Fiona. I grip my teeth as I'm tossed against the solid bottom of a cage. I rock up to my feet as the door slams closed, and my glares are met only with a humourless laughter. I stare the elves down until they walk around to the front of the transport cage, and then dust myself off, trying to work the knots out of my hair with my fingers. The other humans littering the floor of the cage are all curled back against the sides as they try to disappear from view. I consider shrinking back from where I'm standing in the centre, but I change my mind. I'm never going to back down from those bastards. Watching the forest pass by us, I start to get my bearings for where we are. We're getting close to the military base that Hyzen informed me of nearly a month ago. It was the last time I received a letter, as he was telling me where and how to find him. I spot the rushing river that he mentioned, and then there is an unmistaken fallen tree, massive and hollowed out. It's the only one in the centre of a wide clearing, and I can see a thin path disappearing behind it. There are markings on the tree in the Orcish language, only mile markers, but I recognise them as a guide to the base. Why would the Dark Elves get so close to the military base? Isn't that tempting fate for a couple hundred orcs to be so near? The only answer I can think of is that they must have a factory nearby as well. It would make sense. Being so close allows for easy spying and a fast attack when they are ready. But even I don't know about this elvish base. It must be secretive to be left off the map I stole. I dare a few steps closer to the bars of the cage, gripping onto them as I sway, and look around us once more. I had been so focused on my surroundings that I hadn't realised we are at the back of a rather large caravan. Craning my head, I try to peek ahead of us, and I spot more of these moving cages. As I twist to look ahead and walk to the other side to do the same, I manage to count 20 of them. We jolt to a stop, and I leap forward, ready to end this charade here. I won't be taken prisoner by any of these dark elves, and if I have to sacrifice my life to give these people a little hope, then I will. Cries and shouts start up as the cages are unlatched. They are working from the front back, and by the time they reach us, my body is pulsing with adrenaline. The dark elf that comes around to unlock the door doesn't even look up at me as he swings open the front wall of the cage, and I take this as my chance. I jump forward, my hand going to my weapon strapped on the inside of my waistband. Just as my hand closes around the hilt of a thin dagger, though, the dark elf's hand darts out. He catches me around the throat, looking at me with a bored expression, and with a firm squeeze, I lose consciousness. When I wake, I hear the same sounds before. Crying, shouting, pained moaning. It's the sound of the imprisoned and hopeless. That's all that's around me now. I roll on my side, noticing the way that my lockpicks and blade dig into my skin. It seems they didn't search me, probably thinking I'm too weak or useless to be seen as a threat even with a weapon. Biting back a groan as I flip onto all fours, I climb to my feet. My throat doesn't hurt too bad, so I doubt it's terribly bruised. I suspect it was more magic than lack of oxygen that made me pass out in the first place. The ground beneath me is now stone, but the walls are all bars. I've been transported from one cage to another. The people around me are wrapped in tattered clothing, curled in on themselves as they sleep. I wonder if it must be night, their internal clocks kicking in. This is usually when I do my best work, which would explain my sudden alertness. Seeing no one else stirring, I cross the room to the front of the cage. I can easily slip my hands between the bars, and I make quick work of the lock, popping it open without even needing to look. I bite back a sigh of relief as I push the door open a sliver, and just as I go to take a step, I feel something catch my clothing. I turn, shifting the pick in my hand to hold as a weapon, when I see that it's just a little boy. He's small, barely more than a toddler, but his brown eyes are keen as he stares at me. I offer him a small smile, uncertain of what to do as he studies me. His dark brown hair falls into his face as he cocks his head, but he makes no attempt to brush it away. "Hey," I whisper, my ears perking up as I listen for any footsteps. I need you to let me go and go back to sleep, okay? He blinks. Are you escaping? My heart almost cracks at how aged he seems when he speaks. He lives in a world where children can't be. I'm going to find a way out of here, and then I'm going to come back and lead everyone to safety, okay? He nods. Good. For me to do that, though, you need to let go and go lay down. He studies me a second longer and then drops his hand, taking a step back. I offer him another smile and turn to leave. Just as I close the cage door between us, he sticks his hand out to grab onto me one more time. My name is Noah, he whispers. For when you come back. I swallow hard. Noah, I'm Fiona. I'll be right back, okay? This time when he nods, he does as I asked and scurries back against the wall. He sits down until he can't be discerned from a shadow, and I force myself to tear my eyes away from. Jogging through the dimly lit hallways, I start to realise that we must be underground. There are no windows, and the air is damp in a way that tells me the walls are pressed against wet soil. I stick to the shadows as I slip down the winding corridors, and I try to plan as I go. My mind keeps going back to how close we are to the military base, and I wonder if the General Orc from earlier is here too. I know he must be my top priority. I need to get the two of us out of here, and once we escape, he can send the wrath of the military base here. I must keep my promise that I will save the people here. Turning a corner, I scan the cages for the sign of any orc, and I have to bite back a gasp as I take in something new. These walls are not blank or decorated with torches like before. No, chains are stretched across them, holding limp human forms up for all to see. I blink, stumbling away from the pools of blood that soil the ground, and feel bile rising up in the back of my throat. Their flesh is torn and battered, and what little is left is bruised. I can see how brutally they were tortured, and my heart aches as I take it all in. Why would the dark elves do this? Is it a warning to the prisoners? As I continue down the hall, I see larger forms, and my body fills with dread. There are orcs strung up too, in the same manner as the humans. I can't believe the mangled way their broken bones stick out of their skin, their bodies more red than green from all the blood. Fear and panic strike me, as I realise this is what will happen to me if I am caught. I need to hurry and find a way out of here before I am discovered. But with an unknown labyrinth surrounding me, how will I find the Orc General or even an exit?
Chapter 10. Tarod. My ears perk up as I hear the sounds of soft footsteps. They are too light to be a dark elf, who would be as loud as possible coming down this hallway. They love to feed off of fear. No, I don't worry that it is one of my captors coming, but I do wonder who else would be out freely roaming the corridors. It sounds like a human. My suspicions are confirmed as I watch a woman come around the corner, her eyes on the far wall where they've strung up orcs and humans. I know that it is no mistake they put me across from such a display, but it doesn't intimidate me. It does seem to have the desired effect on her, though, as she skitters away from it. I wonder how she got out as she slips down the hall. With my sharp eyesight in the dark, I see her long before she sees me, and I study her, making sure she's not one of those weird, not-nature elf creatures. She looks normal, so I move closer to the bars on the front of my cage. Hey, you! I need to get out of here, and it seems that she is already planning the same thing. I just need to convince her to let me out of these chains. She freezes, her eyes going wide, and her head angles slightly as she turns toward my cell. She blinks, and I wonder if she can see me. Whatever she manages to make out tells her I'm not a threat, though, because the tension seems to melt out of her body and she comes closer. Her eyes are a striking amber that seem to almost glow as she approaches, and I see that there is curiosity, not fear, sparkling in them. I clear my throat as she openly surveys me. I am Terod, the general of the Great War God Clan. I must return to my people, and I can protect you if you will get me out of here. I know that the alliance between humans and orcs have greatly improved our relations, but I still expect humans to be a little weary of me upon first meeting. This woman, however, looks ecstatic as I introduce myself. Her eyes widen and her mouth splits into a wide grin. She comes closer, nodding before I even offer her my protection. I know who you are. It makes my heart stutter as she says it, and I wonder if I've made a mistake. Could it be that she is one of those weird, not-nature elf creatures, but her features are less grotesque? I start to pull away, readying to defend myself when she shakes her head. No, wait, I'm Fiona. I'm a friend of Eileen's. I pause, recognizing the name. Hyzen's mate? You must know Hyzen. Hyzen the Just, I murmur. Of course I know him. I have been working with him as a spy. I raise my eyebrows as she says it. When I learned of the humans infiltrating elf bases as a spy, I hadn't expected it to be slender women. I won't doubt the chieftains, though, as I can see for myself. She has the ability to go undetected well. I escaped the elf base I was on, but I was captured again and brought here. My objective has actually been to free you, so I am excited that we have found each other. She reaches to her side and I tense out of habit until I see she pulls out 2 thin metal pieces. Let's get out of here. Fiona makes quick work of the lock, and the door to the cage pops open with ease. She pulls it open, motioning for me to follow, but I sigh, holding up my arms. Thick restraints have been clamped around my wrists and ankles, tied to the wall so that I have enough room to move about my miniature prison, but not so much that I can get that close to the door. How are you with Mithril? I joke weakly. To my dismay, she shakes her head, slipping into the cage quietly. She grabs the metal, surveying the lock on my wrist. I haven't worked with it before. Her lips purse. I can try, though. A lock is a lock. I don't hold my breath as she works away at my shackles. I know that Mithril is meant to withstand an orc's strength, and I doubt her thin metal pieces will be able to twist the locking mechanisms. She sighs, and I can see the aggravation on her face. I can't get it. I feared that. These chains are made of a very strong metal, which is very rare on Earth. Her eyes narrow as she glances up at me. I know what Mithril is, she snaps. My eyes widen a little and I nod. My apologies, I mutter, not meaning to offend the woman trying to free me. Fiona shakes her head. No, I'm sorry. I shouldn't have been rude to you. I just don't know what to do, and I feel like my luck is running out. There must be a way we can get these off, I muse, racking my brain for any memories I have of how to escape Mithril. The only thing that comes to mind is to fight like hell to avoid being captured. Orcs rarely make it to prisons alive as we fight for freedom or liberation of death before we make it there. Well, I'm no expert. She freezes, and I hear it a second before she does. There are footsteps echoing down the corridor. The weight behind them is heavy, and whoever it is makes no effort to conceal their footfalls. That can only mean one thing. A dark elf is coming. Panic spreads across Fiona's face as her eyes dart around the small cage. If they see her here, she will be in serious trouble. Without thinking, I dart forward and wrap my arms tight around her small frame. I thank the gods that she closed the door behind her, and just before the elf rounds the corner, I turn to face the wall. I press her up against the wall, trying to ignore the way my blood starts to thrum as I do so. I'm able to cover her frame with mine, and she tips her head back to look at me as I shift to take some of my weight off of her without exposing her. Our eyes meet as we both freeze, and I find myself lost in her eyes again. It's not the time for it, but all I can think about is how beautiful she is. If I'm about to be executed, I'm glad my last memories will be of her. Her eyes are so deep and expressive I feel like I understand her every thought. Like how worried she is when the footsteps stop just outside of the cage. I hear them snickering as they come closer to the bars of my cage, and I tense up, telling Fiona to stay quiet with my eyes. Then, with one hand, I deftly undo my belt. Her eyes widen, and I don't have time to explain as I plant one hand against the wall and hunch my shoulders forward. I need to make it look like I have a good reason to be facing this way before they come in here and investigate in the way dark elves do. Orcs, one of the snorts. What disgusting, barbaric creatures. There's a piss bucket in the corner, you lunk. He's going to sleep in a puddle of his own piss? I don't think he's pissing. I can hear the absolute revulsion in their voice. Good. I hope that it makes them move along faster. Instead, something slams against the bars of the cage, ringing out in the quiet air as I refuse to move or respond. Hey! The first one shouts. I hear the jangle of keys and my whole body goes rigid. What are you doing? Chapter 11. Tarod. Fiona goes stiff under me, and I try to keep my muscles from snapping as they are already wound so tight. The air is thick with tension, and her breath catches. When she breathes again, it's soft, and I don't think they heard her almost inaudible gasp. Her heart is thundering even as she tries to control her breathing. I can hear it as her blood practically vibrates under her skin. I hope that the dark elves can't pick up on it, but their hearing is keen. Maybe they'll think I'm just nervous. The tension only grows as the seconds tick by, and I can see the pure terror flickering on her face. We both know what will happen if we are caught, and I need to think of something quick before they decide to investigate. I grit my teeth as I hear the scrape of the keys sliding against each other, and I snap back at them. I'm jerking off. Fiona presses a hand to her mouth to keep from laughing, and I narrow my eyes at her as I shout in the deepest voice I can muster. Looking for a show, boys? You want to learn from an orc how to jack it right? Or are you just curious how we do it with our monster dongs? One of the chuckles darkly and another spits inside the cage. I hear it hit the ground, and although it makes rage spike through me, I ignore them. Better make the most of it, orc, the main guard snarls. It's the only pleasure you'll find for the rest of your useless life. You should really cherish that hand you got, the other one snarks. You might be losing it tomorrow, so you better make sure you get all the use out of it you need. After another round of chuckles, I hear them decide that I'm not worth their time. Their footsteps start again, moving away from me this time. I hold my breath until I can no longer hear them. And then, Fiona lowers her hand from her mouth. We exhale in unison, relief flooding through me. I try not to feel embarrassed for what I said in front of her, and she doesn't comment on it. She does clear her throat, looking down at all the places we are pressed together. I think you can let me up now, she tells me. Right. I'm sorry. I step out of the way, letting her up off the wall. We still need to find a way out of here, especially before they come back. Fiona grabs at the chain, examining it. Is there no way to open the lock? I shrug. Mithril is meant to withstand orcs. It is the only thing that can cut through our thick skin, so I won't be able to break it. She blows out a breath. I've never met a lock that I couldn't pick. I hold my hands out to her. Well, we can't give up now, right? Try again. I'm sure you can get it. Her face is adorable as determination sets in. I watch her hands work delicately, twisting this way and that as she tries over and over to free me of my chains. I'm not sure what she is listening or looking for, but based on her frustrated sighs and gritted teeth, she's gleaning information. Then I hear it. There's a soft click, and I feel the restraints go loose. Her face lights up with excitement, and her jaw drops open. My heart nearly stops as I realize she's going to scream in her victory, and although I don't blame her, I don't want the dark elves to come running back. I clamp my hand over her mouth before any sound comes out. Let's get out of here first. She nods and I drop my hand. I shake free of the chains, trying to drop them gently so as not to alert anyone. I follow Fiona out of the cage, pulling the door shut behind me, though it doesn't lock. I let her take the lead as I know she is better at stealth than I am. As a general, I fight with strength and brutality, never one for sneaking around. Here, though, I need the advantage of slipping out without being seen. I can't take on this many elves at once, especially with their new sidekicks. The halls are unusually quiet and empty, and those guards that are out are so loud that we hear them long before we encounter them. It makes it easy to snake down an adjoining corridor to avoid being discovered. My ears stay tuned to alerts or shouting, but I hear none. I expected them to find my cage empty almost immediately, but it seems we have hit a stroke of luck. No one has come by to check on me. The hall slopes upward, and I realize that we are slowly ascending. I had noticed that we were underground, which Fiona pointed out to me, and the air grows drier as we race up to the surface. Windows break up the walls here, and it's almost too easy to find the exit in the early morning light. We both skid to a stop as a dark elf turns a corner just in front of the door. It's clear he didn't even hear us coming, and by the time he registers our presence, I've already shoved Fiona behind me. The elf's eyes glint, and just as I hoped, his pride overcomes his common sense. He pulls a weapon free of his belt, lunging at me instead of alerting the others. I know I only have limited time to silence him before we draw too much attention to us, though. I duck past his attack, letting the sword slam hard against the wall. I bring my arm down with all my might, connecting with his wrist with such force that the weapon is wrenched from his grasp. He stumbles back and he opens his mouth, about to scream for help. Rushing at him, I grab his head in between my two hands and twist violently, hearing the snap of his spine. He must have been a lowly soldier to not even try to use magic against me. I take a second to listen, but no one else seems to be near enough to hear the scuffle. I look back to Fiona, and she jumps forward, grabbing my hand and pulling me toward the exit. I'm half expecting for the door to have some kind of spell over it to keep us in, but I forget how self-conceited the dark elves are. They assume we are all too stupid or weak to make for an escape, and for that reason there are no extra protections around the final exit to the outside. For once, I'm grateful that they underestimate us so much. It makes it easier to kill them and escape when they don't think any of us need to be watched. Little do they know there is a spy in their midst, and she's leading me out into the woods now, taking away one of their most prized possessions, an orc general. The light outside is bright, and I struggle to adjust to it as we burst out of the base. I stumble a little, but Fiona still holds fast to my hand, helping me along. As my eyes grow used to the light, I see the tree line up ahead. Once we make it there, it will be easy to evade the dark elves. I pick up my speed, nearly dragging the human behind me as I dive for the safety of the forest and away from our kidnappers, making a mental note of my surroundings as I go. I will not forget where this base is. They will pay for all they have done to me and my allies.
Chapter 12. Fiona. We run as fast as we can through the woods. It isn't easy. Fallen branches try to trip us. We skid across mossy rocks, and trees slap our tired faces when we don't watch our step. But no matter how many times we look behind us to check, no one is after us. They don't seem to notice we are gone. It's a miracle, but one that eventually lets us slow down just enough to catch our breath. When we finally get a moment to pull ourselves together, my brain begins to wander. Then it hits me, like a lightning bolt, and I freeze. "What's wrong?" Tarod pants, turning around expectantly. The child's face fills my mind, and it's all that I can see. The poor child who I promised I would come back for. I told them that I would leave for just a moment, so that I could find help. I promised that I would get help, that I would save them. And here I am, wandering the woods a mile away, and they're still in the prison. No wonder he didn't want to let me go. The little boy knew I was a liar, even before I did. I feel sick to my stomach, and hurriedly try to convince myself that I didn't mean it. I would never do such a thing on purpose. It was only because everything was so tense and crazy, and I didn't have a chance to even think. "What's wrong?" Tarod repeats himself since I didn't answer before. "We have to go back," I blurt out. "What?" he says, sounding incredulous. "There are humans back there," I explain, waving a hand in the general direction of the prison. "We have to go back for them. I promised that I would get them out of there before they are." I almost feel nauseous thinking about it. Used for other purposes. The freaks, he comments. I wince at the word but nod. I met ones that weren't all gone. They are humans, transformed into weapons for the dark elves to yield. They are raiding settlements for bodies to use, and I left them plenty to experiment on. Tarod looks torn. We might not even be able to get ourselves out of here alive. We'll need backup, especially to get others out. I bite my lip for a moment, thinking about this. Then I open my mouth, prepared to argue. He cuts me off. He tries to soften his voice, a gentler approach. You can't do anything for them right now, Fiona, he reminds me. I sigh. I know that he is right, but I don't want to admit it. He allows me a moment as I grit my teeth, adjusting to this new blow. Another failure, another letdown, another one that I couldn't save. They haunt me now, and it never gets easier with time. He lets me wallow in my sorrow, then grabs my arm. Dragging me along, he hurries me through the forest. When I begin to move on my own, he lets go of me. We travel faster that way. Send a message, he offers, thinking it's a compromise. They can send help. I shake my head, gasping breathlessly. He's much taller than me with longer legs. It's a struggle to keep up, and I'm already exhausted. Can't, I finally answer. We don't know where the leak is. I stop moving again, and I notice so does Tarod, coming up short. How do you know of the poisoning? I shake my head, still out of breath. I can't talk and run. After a few good inhales, I continue. I don't know what you are talking about, but the person I found that had been turned into one of those drones told me there is a traitor amongst us. They could be anyone, human or orc. No one knows, I point out. The information could end up in the wrong hands. There's no telling. Tarod's face fills with gloom. His eyes grow stormy, and he punches a tree to vent his frustration. It's a move that I can relate to. Finally, he looks at me impatiently. Come on, he snaps. Let's go. We'll find a way to signal for help later. I try my best to follow him obediently, but I'm exhausted already. No matter how much he urges me to go faster, I just can't. My legs and lungs are burning, outmatched by trying to meet the stamina of an orc. He finally snatches me up, putting me on his back. It startles me at first. Once I grow used to it, I'm just embarrassed. It's a bit humiliating, and I feel like a failure. But I can't argue. I'm not keeping up, and he knows it. If this is what has to happen so that I don't slow him down, it's better than being left behind. And it does comfort me to see that he doesn't just ditch me the first chance he gets. Deep down, he's a stranger I know nothing about, and I'm depending on him with my life, literally. This makes me feel like maybe that's a gamble that will pay off. At least I can count on him when the going gets tough. That means the world to a girl like me. I don't exactly have a crowd of people I can depend on. He continues to carry me along, his muscles rippling under my touch. It's the first time my mind has slowed since we met, and I can't help but start to think that this orc is unusually handsome. I blame it on my mind trying to distract itself from the danger I am in, but there's no denying that he is physically great to look at, especially since I have nothing else to do but examine his profile. We need to get as much distance between us and them right now, he explains, as if he needs to give me a reason for picking me up. I'm well aware of how slow I was moving. We need to move fast now while we can see. It's going to get harder at night. What do we do at night? I question, and then I wince at how that might sound. Not that that should be where my thoughts are right now. When we get a safe distance between us, then we can stop and rest, but I'm not stopping until we clear some miles, he warns. At least his mind is clean. It's hard not to think in such a way when an extremely muscular guy is carrying you through the woods to help save you. Hot and thoughtful is kind of a turn-on. Makes sense, I agree, thankful he can't see my face. I can feel him relax, having been prepared for an argument. I don't resist his plan once, no matter how late it gets. We're surrounded by inky black darkness before he finally decides that it's safe to stop. It's nearly dawn before he finds a cave that he deems usable. He sets me down and heads inside to clear the cave. I wait, listening carefully, but there are no sounds to indicate a problem. He returns a few minutes later, having officially given it his stamp of approval. He walks me inside the cave. "Stay here and rest," he instructs me. "I'm going to hunt up some food. It's going to take us a day or two to get back, and we need to eat." Sleepily, I try to object, but he insists that only one of us should be out hunting at a time. I'm too tired to understand why, and after a few minutes I give up arguing. As I fall asleep, I reassure myself that I'll just take a quick nap. Then I can go hunt and let him rest. I don't sleep very long. It's only a couple of hours later, but I wake up to the smell of roasting meat. I open my eyes happily, half expecting to find it was just a dream. Tarod is back, his eyes bright as he waves a rabbit leg near my nose. "Aha," he remarks triumphantly, and I grin as his face lights up. It's not fair how handsome he looks, when I know I must look awful from sleeping on the ground and being dragged around. "I knew that would get you up. Eat up while you can," he urges me, handing me the food. We both eat hungrily. We're starving and focused on relieving our aching stomachs. There's little conversation or small talk, which is good, because my mind is giving me a lot of sentences I can't say out loud. I curse myself, remembering that I'm not out of danger yet. But when I am... The silence in the cave makes it easy to pick up a strange sound coming from outside, and it cuts right through my thoughts. Tarod waves a hand, gesturing to me to be quiet. My ears perk up, listening. I'm instantly on high alert, prepared for a threat. The sound comes closer, and now it's unmistakable. It's the noise of footsteps running quickly toward us. I look at Tarod, feeling helpless. His eyes grow wide, and I know that his panicked expression must mirror my own. There's only one reason I can think of that someone would be running frantically around the woods in the early morning light, like maybe they're looking for 2 escaped prisoners. And as the scuffling footsteps get louder, the only other noise I can hear is my racing heartbeat, whooshing into my ears, because I know that the dark elves are here for us.
Chapter 13. Tarod. Fiona is speechless, but the fright on her face says it all. I crawl on my hands and knees as quiet as possible. The spear that I fashioned from a tree and used to hunt the rabbit is nearby. I stretch my hand out, reaching for the weapon. My palm closes around it, firmly in my grip. No matter what happens, I know that I must protect Fiona. That is the necessary outcome. Everything else can be sacrificed. But she must survive, to deliver her message. She's uncovered so much more than I gave her credit for, knowing more about experimentations and traitors that we have been blind to as we discuss battle. I get to my feet and creep out of the cave. I wave for her to follow, which she does. Outside the mouth of the cave, I look around. They are still out of sight, but drawing closer. "Go hide," I instruct her forcefully. "Find a place where you can escape easily if needed. I'll wait here for them. There's no way of knowing yet what sort of threat we are facing. I may be able to fend off a few dark elves so that we continue our journey. Or we may be significantly outmatched. If I must, my last step can be distracting them, letting her get away and giving her enough time to finish our mission safely." She looks at me, her eyes sad but determined. Her face is pale, but she nods once. Then she slinks away. I turn away, taking a deep breath. I begin to look ahead, hoping to catch a glimpse of our intruders. Then I pause suddenly as a thought occurs to me. Whatever is coming, it isn't dark elves. The footsteps don't match. The sound is uniform and heavy, the noise of marching. My eyes sparkle in excitement, and my heart bubbles with hope. I still don't know who is coming, but there's a chance that it's friend, not foe. When they come into view, I throw my hands into the air triumphantly. They're orcs. Though I've been taking charge so far, I feel a sense of relief to be back with my own team again. The The soldiers look excited, happy to see me. I know that they can't possibly feel as much joy as I do, however. We call out greetings as they approach. The leader comes closer, a familiar face that I'm glad to see. He is Ulu, a member of the Beheader clan. Ulu is a good, reliable leader, which reassures me that everything will be all right now. His face lights up. "Am I glad to see you?" I begin. "Fiona," I call loudly, hoping that she's not too far away. "Fiona, never mind. No need to hide." I hear a rustling sound. She moves into view from behind a line of bushes. But she's moving unnaturally, very stiff and awkward. Her face is pale and strained. Then I see it. Behind her is a dark elf, his bow and arrow trained on her and pointed directly at her head. Oh shit. I turn to Ulu, asking him silently with my eyes what we should do. I have faith that he will be able to think of a solution. Only it seems he and I are working toward different goals as he lunges for me suddenly. I don't understand, but dodge reflexively. He ends up stabbing my arm, which hurts like hell. Still, it's better than hitting my heart like he had intended. Warily, I back away, keeping a wide space between us. His weapon is still drawn, but he doesn't approach yet. He's watching me, judging the right time to strike. What is happening? It's all too easy to put the answer together, though. "You're the traitor," I say slowly. It's an idea that is tough to wrap my head around but begins to settle painfully in my stomach. He laughs, but there is no mirth in it. It sounds cold and chilling. "Of course I am," he agrees. "How the hell do you think we'd get this far into Dark Elf territory otherwise? I managed to lead an entire troop here, making all that noise, and they didn't notice." He gives me a reproachful look. "You overestimate the orc's skills," he scoffs at me. "Or the elves' incompetence. My advice would be to learn to see things the way that they are, not the way that you want them to be." Then he sneers at me sarcastically. "Of course you'll be dead soon, so advice is rather meaningless at this point, don't you think?" "Why?" I manage to stammer out. "Why would you do this?" "The elves are going to make me a chieftain in their new world order when this is all done," he explains, sounding proud. "In short, I did it for power, a tale as old as time." My jaw drops and my blood boils. "Stupid!" I spit back. "You believe the Dark Elves will do that? You should take your own advice and see things as they are, not as you wish them to be." He narrows his eyes. "What are you suggesting?" he demands. "The elves have no compassion for anyone else," I insist. "They'll use you to advance their goal, but when the time comes, they'll pull the ladder up on you too, and leave you to drown." His eyes flash and he lunges again. This time he doesn't use his weapon. He punches me angrily, knocking me over on the ground. Before I can right myself, 4 orcs swarm forward. They hold me onto the ground. I am overpowered and my position is a disadvantage. I cannot shake them, and after a few moments, I give up trying. Instead, I conserve my strength, waiting to see what happens next. Ulu gestures and the dark elf drags Fiona beside me. Ulu points again, and the elf forces her to her knees. Her face is tinged red with anger, and she practically trembles. But it isn't in fear, it's in rage. I'm a little bit awed by this spitfire of a woman. She glares darkly at Ulu, struggling against the elf, but her arms are bound tightly. It's clearly a futile effort, something we can all see, but she tries valiantly. Then another thought occurs to her. She relaxes her arms, but instead she throws her head back and spits at him. "Traitor!" she hisses. "You betray your own, you despicable snake!" Ulu reaches out suddenly, slapping her across the face. I can feel the fury inside of me begin to bubble violently at this, simmering under the surface. She falls over with the force of the blow, and it's only the dark elf holding her up that keeps her off the ground. But this also keeps her exposed and unable to protect herself. Ulu reaches his foot back, preparing to kick her. Her stomach is open. I know that he will break her ribs, And then, even if he lets her go, she will die here. She'll never be able to make the trip back on her own with such a severe injury. The idea of them ganging up on her with no way to defend herself is too much for me. She is weaker than them, and they play with her life like a game. That rage that I've been feeling finally reaches a tipping point and boils over. I feel almost as though I have left my body. I'm not even aware of my actions as I somehow manage to break free of the orcs. I fling the two holding my arms aside, and then the legs. I hear at least one hit a tree with a thud, but I don't care. I move instinctively as though possessed by another force. I cover her with my own body, making a protective shield around her. No one can hurt her. I'll make sure of it. In a world of elves, demons, and liches.
What would you choose?
Power?
Or passion?
Would you stab the monster in the back?
Or take him to bed?
The Immersive Fantasy Audiobook bundle has it all.
Go to worldsofprotheka.com to get access.
Use code YouTube30 to get an additional 30% off.
Protheka's magic is eternal. Audio bundles will make it immersive. Chapter 14. Fiona. Tarod throws himself in between the other orcs and me, shielding me from the incoming blows. He wraps his arms around me, holding me close. It'd be almost tender in any other circumstance. Before I have time to think, he pushes me away. "Cave," he says, shoving me in that direction. I run, managing to dodge the grasp of one orc. It's only once I'm in the cave that my brain kicks in that we're cornered. But Tarod blocks the entrance with his body. This is insane. Even though the opening is small enough that no one can get past him, the cave isn't that deep. There's nowhere for us to go. Tarod might be able to make it. He's strong. I'm the only thing that keeps him here. I start pulling off my jacket. "Tarod, you need to run. Leave me here, but take my jacket." "I don't." He gets interrupted when an orc tries to cut him open with a machete. My protector barely dodges it. The narrow cave means he can protect me, but it doesn't give him a lot of space to move. "I don't think it'll fit me." "No. It has the intelligence on what the dark elves are doing to humans. You can take it without me." "You have evidence," he shouts, and I wonder now if he was only protecting me so I could share my knowledge with the chieftains. "I could have given it to you before," I admit. "But it's not that I thought you were the traitor, but I just couldn't be sure. Can we discuss this some other time?" Tarod clocks one orc across the jaw, and I can hear the snapping of bones as his neck breaks. The orc topples over. For a second, I think that maybe Tarod has the right idea. He can block us in here, choke the entrance with their bodies. But then I see they pull the body away before Tarod can even react. "No, we can't. You have to take this and get it to someone you can trust. Malik or someone. Please. Good people died for this. We can't let the orcs get taken by surprise." Tarod doesn't say a word. He just keeps fighting and struggling. I wish I could say I was happy to see someone so dedicated to keeping me safe. It's been so long since I had anyone who was there for me in any sort of protective role. But now isn't the time. I'm not important. The information is, and this fool thinks he can single-handedly block me from harm against a small army of orcs. This can't be. This is just too much. "Tarod, please, take it and go. I'll run the opposite direction or something." "No!" I don't know how we can make it out of this alive. I'm not looking forward to death, but that was always a possibility hanging over me from the day I was born into this world. I've never really known safety or peace. It used to be orc raiding parties, and then it was the dark elves, and now drone armies. Knowing that death is always one cruel twist of fate away mentally prepared me for this moment. I'm ready. But I want my death to matter. If I die here and I don't get the information out, then I'm just a corpse for no reason. "Tarod, please, you... Stop distracting me." I can see the cuts forming on his body. He manages to snatch a sword from one of our attackers, but it's not enough. I want to kick him, or yell at him, but he could die quicker that way. I can't do anything, and I hate feeling this powerless. There's not much room in the cave behind me, and Tarod is losing ground. Then I cry out as I see our opportunity for him to run disappear as he's pushed too far into the cave. "Tarod!" I scream when my back hits the wall. Then he turns around and embraces me again, bringing me to the floor. "I won't leave you. With my last breath, I'll protect you." His words take me by surprise, and I feel like someone's crushing my heart. These sound like parting words, and not those of someone I only met hours before. Then another voice cuts through it all. "You were always a fool, Tarod." The voice sounds close, in the cave with us, right behind Tarod. I see the traitorous orc Ulu lift a spear through the gap between arm and side. "Look out!" I scream, realising how useless the words are once they're out of my mouth. Tarod has nowhere else to go. Even if he wanted to leave me to die, he couldn't at this point. He jams the spear into Tarod's back. My tears mix with Tarod's blood, and then Ulu drags Tarod off of me. The orcs pull Tarod back out of the cave and then come for me. I leave my jacket behind, hoping maybe someone else might find it. Someone who aren't these traitors and their quite literal backstabbing leader. I'm thrown to the ground in front of Tarod. They have him on his knees now, several more orcs holding him down this time. He looks at me, his eyes wild. He roars and manages to throw some of them off, and he leaps for me, covering my body with his again. But there are more than enough orcs to peel him off me. They dogpile on top of him, holding him down. A hand grabs my shoulder, and I'm brought to my knees with Ulu in front of me. "No, you let her go, you motherless son of a bitch," Tarod yells. Ulu just laughs and then says, "I don't think I've ever seen you look this desperate before, Tarod, though I heard you made quite a sight when the Dark Elves had their hands on you. If not for their plans, I'd just be done with you now." Tarod struggles, and I think he actually starts to lift the pile of bodies on top of him for a moment. I see the look of shock on their faces, but the relief when he falters and collapses back to the ground. But I have no need for this girl who you suddenly seem to find so precious. Have you gone soft, General Tarod? "I repay my debts. She freed me. I owe her," Tarod says. "Well, unfortunately, this will be one debt that you won't be able to repay." Ulu nods, and then a hand roughly grabs my hair, pulling my head back until I'm staring into the face of a cruel-looking orc holding a very large knife. "Let her go, Ulu. She's done nothing to earn this." "Believe me, Tarod, I'm doing this little bitch of yours a favour. If the Dark Elves get a hand on her..." Ulu gives an over-dramatic shudder. "I've seen what they do to humans now. If she's lucky, she ends up their slave." He lightly smacks my cheek. "At least this way she gets to die while still having that pretty face." I spit at him, earning a harsh tug of my hair from the orc behind me. "Feisty. She has spirit. I'll give her that. So yes, it's better for her to die here now than become one of those things. Just consider it a final favour from an old friend." "I'll kill you, you son of a bitch." "You're done for, Tarod. You need to see that. I will be the chieftain of the remaining orc clan. Me, the ruler of all the orcs of Earth." "You're either fucking stupid or crazy. The Dark Elves found themselves a useful idiot." Then Ulu kicks Tarod in the chin. "Hold him up," Ulu orders. "I want him to watch the favour I'm giving him so he can thank me for it later." They bring Tarod to his knees. He struggles, but he looks dazed. The blow to the head isn't doing him any favours. Ulu nods, and the orc behind me raises his knife. I close my eyes. Just because I always knew my death would come doesn't mean I want to watch as it happens.
Chapter 15. Tarod. Between the stab wound to my back and the blow to the head, I can't gather the strength to throw the orcs off of me. I don't know if it's getting kicked in the face or the way all the worst moments seem to take forever. But time slows as the dagger descends towards Fiona. I roar, trying to struggle out of the grip of the orcs holding me, making me watch. I see Fiona's eyes close, but I keep mine open. I don't want to watch her die. But if a woman this brave and self-sacrificing is about to draw her last breath, someone should witness it. Someone has to remember. There's still so much I don't know about her, things I'll never get to know. But she's courageous, and the memory of her has to live on. She took a dangerous mission. She rescued me. She fought as best she could against enemies much stronger than her and was willing to sacrifice herself to see that her mission was carried out. But instead of a death blow, the knife just snags on her shirt and falls to the ground. It was such a close strike. There's almost no way the orc could have missed. But it's hard to aim with a hatchet buried in your skull. Just before his body hits the ground, a machete sails through the air and nails one of the men holding me, planting itself between his shoulder blades. A roar rises up from the forest around us. Ulu realizes what's happened a second before I do. He grabs Fiona and runs for my true allies. He's perhaps a bit sharper since he hasn't been kicked in the head recently, but I'm able to throw the orcs off me and pull the blade from the back of my fallen foe. I rise, my vision swimming slightly, but I grit my teeth. Now is not the time to pass out. The orc with the ambition of being a mighty chieftain runs like a coward. But as far as motivations go, ambition pales in comparison to duty, honor, and just sheer payback. I catch up to Ulu quickly and slash at his shoulder, well above where he holds his hostage. Fiona tumbles out of his grip, and I leap over her body without thinking. Yes, I worry for her. But the ow from her tells me she's alive. Anything else can wait. Ulu must die. In the back of my mind, I know he's already done for. His arm hangs on by a thread of flesh, and he's bleeding badly. But I don't want to leave anything to chance. If we got him to the human doctors and our shamans, they might be able to stop the bleeding in time. I can't see us using our precious resources to save a traitor's life. The dark elf magic could spare him, though I doubt they'd waste their time on him. He's been found out. He's useless to them now. And yet I can't let him go. The rage in me is too much. His mocking tones, trying to make it seem like killing Fiona was a favor to me, echo in my head. He must pay. The next slash across his back sends him sprawling, face first into the ground, rolling over onto his back. He holds his still functional hand up as if to dissuade me or guard himself. Either way, it's useless as I hack the hand clean off, just above the wrist. His howl of pain is silenced when I sink the blade between his eyes. But I will leave nothing left. I raise the sword again, and again, and again. The rage is in me and I can't stop. All I see is red, and only some of it's his blood. He betrayed the tribe, sided with our mortal enemies, and tried to kill the bravest woman I've ever met. I pour every last ounce of my hatred and anger into my sword, but something cuts through the haze. Tarod! A voice, weak and pained, calls to me, slamming my blade into his heart that had long since stopped beating. I turn around and see Fiona on the ground, pushing herself to sit. I feel the blood dripping down my face and know that not a drop of it is mine. I sweep my hand over my face and wipe the blood away as best I can. I take a step toward her and offer her my hand before realizing it's covered in blood. I switch, offering her the other and pulling her to her feet. She's dirty, and her shirt is torn where the blade fell, but she's otherwise unharmed. I continue drawing her in before stopping. I'm already lifting my other arm to embrace her when I realize that, while she's a little dirty, I'm covered in mud and blood. I couldn't possibly soil such a delicate creature. The sound of battle rages around us, but it seems to fade as I stare into her eyes and feel the pull between us, the very one I felt in that cage that I've been trying to ignore this entire time. Again, I fight against it, taking a step back. Now is not the time. It was pointless, though. She throws herself at me, and I take her up in my arms, holding her as she starts sobbing. The fight around us is already dimming, not just from my focus on Fiona, but because my true allies have the traitors outnumbered. I pat Fiona on the back gently. I've seen a few humans do this. It's supposed to be a comforting gesture. You're safe now. We're safe now. Everything's fine. I hold her until she eventually calms down enough to speak. "You fucking asshole!" I wasn't sure what the next words were going to be out of Fiona's mouth, but those weren't ones I'd considered a possibility. I look down at her face streaked with mud, blood, and tears. She looks pissed. "I told you to take the intel and go. But you didn't listen. You could have been killed, and then what would have happened?" But we weren't. But you didn't know that." I stare at her, blinking as I try to catch up to where she is in the conversation. I think the blow to the head still has me a little muddled. "Too much is riding on this to leave to chance. Can you come with me to get my jacket? I left it in the cave. I didn't want the traitors to think it was important." We walk back to the cave as our allies finish piling up bodies. She picks up the jacket and checks in pockets I wouldn't have believed were there if I didn't see her open them. She seems satisfied. When we step out of the cave again, I see Dog and Hyzen. I point them out to Fiona. "They need to know." "And you trust him?" she says, eyeing Dog. Hyzen is already jogging our way, his gaze narrowed in on Fiona. "Dog and I don't always get along," I say, remembering our tense council meeting. "But he's an honorable man. He has a human mate." She turns and looks at me, confused. "What? It's not unheard of." "No, I wondered why you mentioned it." "Oh, I just figured it meant that he was unlikely to be the kind to join the Dark Elves. You know, motivated to protect his wife's people." "Oh, I see. Yeah." Dog follows Hyzen up the short hill towards us. Before they get too close, though, Fiona clears her throat. "And Terod?" She sounds nervous. "I promise you can trust everyone here." "No, it's not that." "Okay, what?" "Thank you for not leaving me. Don't worry about it. I'm not planning on doing it anytime soon." Chapter 16. Tarod. "Thank you for the rescue," I say when I'm standing with Dog, Hyzen, and Fiona. "What brought you out here?" "The Dark Elves sent a message and said they captured you and wanted to ransom you," Dog answered. "They told us to send a small party to negotiate your release." I look over the assembled orcs and humans. There must be at least 100 of them. "This is small," Hyzen laughs. "The Dark Elves don't take orc prisoners. We figured it was a trap and planned to strike first. We're lucky to have found you when you did." "I must apologize, Tarod," Dog says, his eyes gleaming with sincerity. "Ulu was my clanmate. I should have sensed it. No one saw it coming. It can be hard for honorable men to sense dishonor. I don't blame you," I say. Fiona clears her throat and Hyzen's eyes snap to her. "Have you discovered more?" he asks. Dog looks between the two of us. "You know here?" "Fiona," he answers. "Fiona King. She was one of our spies with a noble." Dog's eyes widen, but Hyzen ignores him. "When we heard the castle burned down, we feared you had died. Are you okay?" "Yes, I am. Thanks to Tarod," she says. "Wait, just a minute. I'm only not being tortured by Dark Elves because you saved me." "We're getting off topic," Fiona says, waving my words away. She pulls out a map from her jacket. "The Dark Elves are creating an army. They... Fiona starts breathing hard. "They're doing something to humans," I finish for her. "Turning them into these twisted FR... drones," Fiona interrupts. "They have a weird mix of magic and alchemy or something. I'm not sure how it works, but it changes their bodies and makes them subservient to the Dark Elves' will. They're faster and stronger than most orcs," I add, "and they don't have a scent." Hearing those words from Fiona were oddly comforting. Hearing it said out loud confirmed my suspicion, as well as an enhanced sense of smell. That was new information for me. Hyzen looks concerned. That would explain why we've seen an uptick in kidnappings instead of slaughter. "Let's go somewhere to discuss this a bit more," Dog suggests, glancing around. Ever cautious to be the chieftain of such a violent clan. The soldiers around us busy themselves with building pyres for the corpses. Dog leads us a bit away from the battlefield to where they appear to be setting up camp. When I take a seat in the command tent, I realize how utterly tired I am. The spear wound has stopped bleeding, and my head is feeling a little better. It's improved more so when Dog has food and drink brought to us. Okay, Fiona. Start from the beginning. I listen as Fiona talks about her time under Lady Hanaya, revealing the secret chamber she thought was where the portal was, and the Nolrith process. When she talks about Danny, I can see how much it pains her. She starts pulling out all the paper she stuffed into that jacket of hers. Hyzen looks at it and says, "Malik can read Dark Elf, I believe. He might be able to help us decipher these notes." "And what happened with Danny?" Dog asks, and I instantly wish he hadn't. The way Fiona's voice catches, I know this story doesn't have a happy ending. He said that he could feel himself slipping. He didn't know how much longer he had in control of his own body. So, he told me to go, and then he sacrificed himself to burn the lab. He sounds like a brave lad, Dog says. So the potion or whatever they made is flammable. Highly, it appears, Fiona answers. Well, that should make destroying these other sites easier. I don't know how much time we have, I say. From everything, it seems like they wanted to use this negotiation to delay while they finished getting their armies ready. But why? Hyzen asks. We all turned and looked at him, waiting for him to elaborate. I mean, why go through all the trouble of experimenting on humans? All the delays? Why haven't they outright attacked us with an army of dark elves? I'm not certain, I say, but it seems like they can only bring so many dark elves with them. But that raises another question. Thoughtful is not a look that pairs well with Dog's face, but he's definitely thinking something. The basic question. How? At first we thought they had another portal stone, but that doesn't appear to be the case. They haven't been making sacrifices for a ritual to bring more dark elves here. They've been gathering them for this army. I have a theory, Fiona says. I don't know how their portal works or how limited it is, but all the dark elves I've seen or heard of all seem to come from one noble house. They've had limited numbers of troops they could send, complaining about others' ignorance as they fight for what matters. It can't be all the dark elves of Protheka, or there would be endless masses here. It's just one house behind it. We all nod, knowing it makes the most sense. It opens up just as many questions as it answers, though, and so we turn back to her recollections instead of diving into our thoughts. After she tells them of the mansion we were both imprisoned in, Fiona says, "It's not marked on the map, but they did have human prisoners there. Could you help them?" Dog and Hyzen nod. Then Dog says, "I'll send a few soldiers back with you to base. It's late, and these woods are dangerous." Turning to me, he says, "Tarod, we could always use another sword arm." I sit there a moment, considering it, but too many thoughts flash in my mind, mixing with Fiona's intense gaze until I blurt out, "I think it'd be best if I escort Fiona back to base. I promised her I'd protect her. I should stay close. We still don't know how many more traitors are out there waiting to strike." She looks like she might protest before I add, "And besides, your soldiers seem fresher than me. I've been stabbed, poisoned, hung up, and starved for days. I'll be better off trying to keep my eyes on one human than fighting dark elves and drones." Okay. Dog nods. "We'll send 2 soldiers and some Hokeen to get you back to base. Then they can get back here. We will make camp here and plan our assaults and strike out at first light if you change your mind. I don't think I will, but I appreciate the chance for glory in battle. In part, it's true that I'm not fresh for battle, but I've fought injured before. I don't want to leave Fiona. It feels like my responsibility now to see her intel delivered to Malik. With 2 soldiers as an escort and Fiona riding with me, we make it back to base without any further excitement. It's enough that Fiona passes out in my arms. I hold her close to my body so she doesn't slip from the saddle. As soon as we arrive, the soldiers turn back to the camp, and I take Fiona to get looked at by the shaman and doctors. Can you stay here? Fiona asks as I start to walk away to give her privacy. I just feel safer knowing you're nearby. Yeah. Sure. No problem. I sit next to her as they check her for any major injuries. As they poke her and prod her and ask her questions, she looks at me on occasion. It warms my heart to be there for her, even in this simple way. I'm vigilant, glaring at anyone else who walks by. Feels good to take care of her. Is this what family feels like? I'm not sure. I always had my clan, but my parents died when I was young, and I haven't had the chance to form a deep bond like this before. Now, it's your turn, Fiona says. What? They should have a look at you after all you've been through. I'm about to tell her that I'm fine. I just need some rest, but I can see from the look in her eyes she's not looking for an argument. Isn't this what family does? Take care of each other? Okay, I say, sitting down. But after this, we have to visit Malik. I'm sure he'd love to see you again. Although I leave it unsaid, I think she understands that I want her to give Malik the information she has on the infernal process the Dark Elves are using to make their army.
Chapter 17. Fiona. It turns out that Tarod's injuries, as bad as they seemed at the time, healed just fine. I always knew orcs were tough, but to go through everything he did and only feel a little tired amazes me. I'd never seen the Alliance base before, and it amazes me how integrated the place has become with humans and orcs working side by side. A few short years ago, the only time you would have seen this many humans and orcs together would be during a battle where they'd be trying to kill each other. I'm struck by the realization that Tarod and I would have been enemies. That feels so strange and wrong. Impossible, even. Tarod would never hurt me. When we come to the council chambers, and I see Malik, I know it's him even though we've only met once or twice when I first came to the Burning Sun clan with Eileen. He's often called Old Malik, and it's easy to see why. His grey hair is a rarity among orcs, as is his age and knowledge. Even though they are strong, they are warriors. Eventually, most of them fall in battle. His eyes light up as we approach. Fiona, you have returned. I nod. It's a pleasure to see you again, sir. He waves his hand at me, dismissing the formality. It's my understanding that you were undercover among the Dark Elves. I'm glad to see you have made it out. Are you okay? I wasn't expecting raging and grunting, but Malik seems so gentle and composed, it's hard to reconcile the image of him with the warrior orcs. Is he remaining so placid for my benefit? I am. It was a close call, but I'm fine now. Hyzen sent me here to tell you that I have some information that is of vital importance. Once again, I give a report of everything that I saw. I feel a knot forming in the pit of my stomach when I start to talk about Danny. After going over it so many times, I thought it would be easier, but it's not. When my voice starts to shake, Tarod puts his hand on my shoulder. I don't feel any less sad about it, but I feel like I can deal with it better by having my orcish protector here with me. This is very disturbing, Malik says when I finish. Thank you for bringing it to my attention. And you said you have some things written in Dark Elf? Yes. I start pulling out sheet after sheet of paper. I left the map with Dog so they could plan their attacks. I don't know if the notes on there will reveal anything else. Well, you've given me plenty to work with. It's been a long time since I had the need to read Dark Elf. This will take me a while to decipher. But for now, you should take some time to recover from your ordeal. I'll have you set up with some housing. Thank you. Take care of yourself. Will do. A human woman named Dana leads me to a building and makes sure I have the basics I'll need. Tarod stays close, a comforting point of familiarity in this strange place. It's funny how I still barely know him, and yet it already feels like he just fits in my life. I'll have fresh clothes delivered soon, Dana says before she leaves. After the door closes behind her, Tarod says, I'll make sure you get food. You should eat. I'm about ready to tell him it's fine until my stomach growls, and I suddenly realise how hungry I am. Thank you. The little apartment they put me in is pretty Spartan, but it looks like temporary housing, a place for people just passing through or where they send those who are waiting for something more permanent. While he's gone, I decide it isn't a bad idea to take a shower, considering how long it's been since I had one. It's a little awkward when I realise that the orcs have showers with actual plumbing, and I have to figure out what way to turn the knobs. Dark elves infuse everything with magic, so adjusting water temperature is as simple as putting your palm on a little stone and thinking about the temperature you want that water to be. It also makes me realise they probably have an actual boiler and hot water tank instead of whatever crazy spell work the dark elves had. It's only after I've showered and dried off that I realise I didn't wait for clean clothes. I look at the ones I travelled in. The thought of putting those soiled things back on my clean body makes me shudder. I guess a towel will have to do for now. It won't be a big deal if I'm in just a towel. Then I realise how wrong I am when I come out of the bathroom and see Tarod in the kitchen, preparing some food. I suddenly feel very aware I'm only in a towel. Which is silly. Why is this such a big deal? Tarod looks up at me and smiles, and I have to squeeze my legs together from that. I'm almost disappointed when his eyes don't assess my exposed form. Oh, Dana just dropped off some extra clothes, he says, pointing a wooden spoon at the small pile of folded laundry on the table. They're very basic, but clean, and that's all that matters. I scurry over, keeping the towel pulled tight around me as I survey the pile. Not that Tarod looks interested at all by my wardrobe. I could probably drop the towel, and he wouldn't stare. He seems to be very respectful. Why does that word feel wrong in this context? I pull out a pair of sweats and a shirt, hoping they'll fit. I told her you were in the shower. I was in the middle of cooking, or I would have knocked on the door and asked where you wanted me to put them. It's fine, I say before dashing back into the bathroom, needing to control my thoughts. In my haste, I hadn't even grabbed underwear. But I get dressed in something more than a towel. The clothes fit okay. They are loose, but I guess they just have to work with what they have on hand. When I come out, Tarod is dishing soup into bowls. Okay, eat. You need to get your strength up. I move the clothes from the table to the bed, and we sit on opposite sides of the table. It's then that I notice Tarod looks like he cleaned up as well. He has on fresh clothes, and his hair is still wet. He must have taken the fastest shower to be cleaned up and here making me food. Or I could have been in there a while. It had been days. Are you okay? Tarod asks, snapping me out of my thoughts. Yeah, I just spaced out there for a second. I'm sorry. It's fine. I just worry since you've been through a lot. Concern furrows his brow. I'm fine. How did you get cleaned up and make food so fast? Tarod smiles. I'm at the barracks right now. So I just used the showers there while I had someone grab me something for you. I'm sorry it's not fresh, but I don't think you'd want me cooking for you. I know field rations more than sit-down food. But they had frozen soup, so I just warmed it up for you. Well, it's good, and thank you. We lapse into silence as we just eat for a bit. I think both of us are hungry, though he's acting like the focus should be on me. Tired of being trapped in my own mind, I try to start up a conversation. If you're a general, shouldn't you have your own house or something? I ask, then shake my head. Oh, gosh. I'm sorry, that's kind of rude. He grins at me, clearly not offended. This isn't my base. I'm just working out of here for now. Oh, do you have people waiting for you back home? A wife? Please say no. I'm surprised at the thought, and it hits me all at once that I'm sort of falling for him. A wife? No mate, no nothing. It's just me. But it's okay. I've gotten used to taking care of myself. There is something in the way he says it that hints at sadness. I'm deeply curious, but I don't know if I want to poke too deep into old wounds. Though it's not like I don't have some of my own.
Chapter 18. Tarod. I've been by myself too, since my parents died, Fiona says. I feel a tug in my gut at the statement. Is that what I've been feeling? Is that our connection? I'm sorry, I guess we're just a couple of orphans then. Oh, when did... Never mind. I don't know if you want to talk about that. I don't want you to have to dig up things. They died when I was really young. A rival clan raided us. I've been in the care of the clan since then. Orcs take care of each other, but... It just isn't the same, she says. Yeah. My friend Eileen, we're like sisters, and her parents are great to me, but I feel I just never quite fit right. She smiles. It's wistful, but there's something in it. Something more. Something deeper. This bond between us finally makes sense to me. The great war god must have taken pity on me and sent me a sister. I don't know what else to call her. I've never had a sister, so I don't know exactly what that's like, but I can see how this blessing binds us together. Do I tell her? The humans have their own gods, if they have them at all. And I don't know what she would think if I told her I thought she was a blessing from mine. It might just be too weird for her, and she'd think I'm some freak. A sad, lonely orc desperate for connection. So much so that I'd make it divine. Okay, but what if I am? I try to force all those doubts aside. Divinely gifted or not, I can't deny the bond we share. We're two orphans who waded into battle together and emerged victorious. We eat and talk some more, but eventually it is late, and I can see she's having trouble keeping her eyes open. You should sleep, I say. You're probably right. Do you? You know what? Never mind. I cock my head to the side. What? It's a stupid thing. Don't worry. What is it? Just tell me, I say, hoping she's thinking the same thing I am, that we are connected. It would do away with so much of my unease at my own thoughts. Could you stay until I fall asleep? Yes, I'm very tired, but I think the only reason I started drifting off with you here is that I feel safe enough with you around to do that. Yeah, I can stay. I'll just get ready for bed real fast, she says, before disappearing into the bathroom. When she comes out, I pull up a chair next to her bed as she gets under the covers. Thank you, Terod. I know this is silly, but it's not silly. You've been through a lot lately, but so have you. But I'm a warrior. Fights like this are what I do. Spy work. It's not that it's not dangerous, but the danger is different from what you went through today. I suppose you're right. Good night, Tarod. Good night, Fiona, I say. She closes her eyes, and it's not long before her even breathing tells me that she's asleep. I brush a stay hair out of her face in her sleep, and she leans into the touch. Sleep well, I whisper, before I carefully rise out of the chair and leave her apartment. The next day, I rise early and head to see Fiona. I knock on her door and she answers, rubbing her eyes. Tarod? Is everything okay? Yes. I brought you breakfast, I say, holding out some of the items I grabbed from the mess hall. I'm not sure what you liked, so I grabbed a bit of everything. I just wanted to get a chance to make sure you were doing well before I have to do some training with my soldiers. The ones that aren't with Dog. She waves me in, and we sit to eat together again. I'm feeling a bit anxious as the silence laps over us, having stayed up too late thinking about the possibility of our connection and where it may go next. There are too many questions in my head, and I fear how she may react to them. My stomach is in knots as I decide to broach one that is relatively innocent. I was thinking, I start, hoping she can't hear the twinge of nervousness in my voice, that we could head to my base after a few days of rest. Your base? She seems shocked at the suggestion. Yeah, I hedge. Is there something wrong with that? Why would you take me to your base? Suddenly things twist in my gut as I start to think I've misunderstood our connection. Last night we seemed so in sync, but now it's different. So I can take care of you? But I have my own base, with my people. I need to go find Eileen and her parents. But you said last night you didn't feel like you fit there. I mean, It's not perfect, but they are the closest thing I have to family, and I've been gone a long time. But I'm a general in my clan. I can't leave them to travel with you. Why would you need to? She sets down her food, shaking her head. I'm confused. I promised I'd take care of you, that I wouldn't leave you. I watched the way it seemed to put her at ease before, but now the same words make her tense. I mean, it's not like I need you to watch over me for the rest of my life. You've done more than enough for me. But, Terod, I have a whole life I can't just leave behind. I put everything on hold until after I completed my mission. I completed my mission. I don't know if I'm up for another one. I don't want to press my luck, but I do want to go home. At least stay here for a few more days and rest, I ask of her. Okay. That wasn't the way I saw that playing out in my head. I thought our connection was strong, and she seemed to like having me around. I didn't know she would be so ready to end it, and the thought of her leaving stings deep inside of me. After a few more minutes, I excuse myself to go train with my men. Dog left me 15 good soldiers. I'm happy that my men went looking for me, but stayed with Dog. Those labs needed to be destroyed, and this would undoubtedly be enough soldiers to make travel home safe. My thoughts keep going back to Fiona, and I know I'm not ready to let her go. I understand she has people she cares about, but so much has changed. Eileen isn't even at the Burning Sun clan anymore, having traveled north with Hyzen. Maybe I can convince her. The following day, I don't go to Fiona's for breakfast. Instead, I find some of my soldiers returning, escorting a couple dozen humans. Soldier, who are these humans? I ask, detouring from my path toward the mess hall. We raided that mansion, and we found these prisoners in the basement. They're from all over, so Dog said we'd bring them here first before finding them homes. I nod, my eyes roaming over the group, and my soldier asks, Do you want us to stay with you or return to the fight? Return to the fight. I'll make sure Malik gets these people situated. I escort the whole lot to Malik and make sure he can start getting them handled before I go back to Fiona's. I had almost avoided her, but now that I have something to say other than asking her to journey with me, I feel right about delivering new information. When she opens the door, I say, Good news. Dog and Hyzen freed the humans from the mansion. They're safe on base. Her eyes widen with hopefulness. Was Noah with them? Who? A little boy. Dark brown hair about this big, she says, hovering her hand in the air. Yeah, there was a little boy like that in the group. Fiona leaps into my arms, hugging me tightly. That's great. I have to go see him. Where are they? In Council Hall, getting things sorted. Let's go, she says, pulling my arm. When we get there, the place is still crowded. That doesn't discourage her as she dives in. Noah! Fiona calls. Noah! A little boy emerges from the crowd. I stay back as Fiona wraps his arms around him. You sent a whole army for us. His voice is all excited energy. I told you I'd save you. She squeezes him. I'm so glad you're safe. They talk for a while and I hang back to give them space. Eventually, it's time for Noah to get processed, and we depart. As we walk back to her apartment, I notice that Fiona's crying. Are you okay? Yeah, just happy. Well, if she's in a good mood, this might be the best time for me to ask. Okay, then I think no is a good time to talk about you coming to my base. Tarod, I can't stay on your base. She plants herself and crosses her arms. I'm not saying permanently, but it would be best to stay with me at least until they finish taking out those bases, just so I know that you're safe, or at least safer. Then I'll escort you home. She regards me coolly, and I try not to seem too eager. If I can convince her to come with me, then maybe I can convince her to stay once I get her there. It'd be much easier to do that if she were already there and I could show her what it's like, what I can do for her. She's given me the taste of having someone, having a family, and it pains me to think of being alone again.
Chapter 19. Fiona. I wanted to say yes the first time he asked me to his base, but I didn't want to leave the rest of my life behind without a good reason. But this seems like a good compromise. I can stay and maybe figure out if there's something more going on between us. It'd be a lot more helpful if he'd just read my damn mind and figure out how to answer the questions I'm too afraid to ask. But then he might also pick up on the very filthy thoughts I've been starting to have about him. Though if he were down for it, that would be a different story. Okay, I say, and he seems to deflate a bit with relief. That would be nice, but I can't become a burden. I'll need to have something to do. I'm sure we can put you to work. Tarod smiles like he just won a prize. But what does that mean? Is he excited because he gets to keep his promise? From what he said to Ulu, it seemed like that was all he wanted. I'm not saying I want him to profess his undying love for me right now. Hell, if he did then, I would be worried. I just want to see that his desire for me goes past repaying a debt, like mine does for him. I didn't really feel it until we were on base. There were inclinations before, sure, in the way he looked at me and cared for me. I just thought there was something there before he reminded me that we are allies in a war. And that's it. If only it could be more. What the hell am I thinking? I realise that once I go with him, I'm not going to want to leave. And if he just looks at me as a sort of duty to perform, and I'm stuck in my feelings for him, this is going to be fucking torture. But it's too late now. I've agreed to it, so I keep my feelings in check and my mouth shut as our time on this base dwindles and Tarod prepares things to leave. It gives me time to say goodbye to Noah before he heads back to his settlement. I'm so glad that he's okay. I don't have to read anything into the fact that Tarod told me about that, right? It was just an update on battle strategy. Or was he telling me because he knew I was upset when I couldn't immediately free everyone? Fuck. I really am going to drive myself fucking crazy over-analysing everything this man does for however long I'm at his base. But there's a chance I'm not projecting my emotions on him. There's a chance that I'm more than some point of pride to a warrior. I can only hope that he does have feelings for me, and even if it's a bad idea, I've bought myself some more time to figure it out. It seems abominably early when we leave a few days later. The sun isn't even out yet, but we take a carriage and hock in back to his base, flanked by his soldiers. The ride is mostly uneventful as long as I don't count me over-analysing everything Tarod does and doesn't say. Attention to detail is a spy's best friend, but that's while on a mission. I wish I could just shut off the part of my brain that obsesses over every little detail, searching for an answer. While I'm at it, I should also turn off the part of my brain that keeps tallying the reasons I'm falling for him. He actually listens when I talk about things like missing my parents. When discussing tragedies like their deaths, I tend to find that whoever I'm talking with either doesn't care or tries to make it about some strength it gave me, or that it served some greater purpose. They want to make me feel better about my parents' deaths, when in reality, it just sucks. And Tarod gets that. We arrive at the base late at night. I'm surprised how tired I am when I really haven't done anything at all but sit in a carriage, but I'm absolutely exhausted. I'm not bringing much with me. My clothes have been cleaned, and I now have a few extra sets. But I get the feeling if I had a ton of luggage, Tarod would carry it all. When we get to his home, I notice that it's not too dissimilar from the apartment I stayed in. Mostly open space, few interior walls, and only one bed. There's a small room in the corner that I'm assuming is the bathroom, but there doesn't appear to be anything resembling a guest room. Tarod sees me looking, and I can see it on his face that he didn't think this through. I should have thought ahead, he says. But we can figure something out. For now you take the bed, and I'll sleep on the floor. No. No. No, I'm not going to make you sleep on your own floor. You're not making me do anything. I'm the one who invited you here and didn't even begin to question where you might sleep. Yes, but... So it's settled then, Tarod interrupts. No, you invited me, but that still means my presence here is why you can't sleep in your bed. I want to just ask him if he wants to share. It seems reasonable. We're both adults and can control ourselves, but as the image of fucking him awake in the morning floods my mind, I wonder if I actually could. But why should I deny myself the opportunity if it means getting what I want? I'm sure he'd be game for it. He has to find me at least attractive enough that he wouldn't turn that down, right? That question is enough to turn my stomach. I regret this whole endeavour. It was a stupid idea to come here. I knew it even as I was lying to myself that this was just a visit, that my motivations for being here were to soothe my curiosity and protect myself. Tarod sighs. "You're going to be sleeping in the bed if I have to tie you down to it," he says. I don't know if he was aware of how that sounded, but it's moments like this when having dark skin really helps, because it's a lot harder to tell. The thought is making me blush. "Okay," I say, half relenting and half hoping he'll take it as the invitation to actually tie me to the bed. But instead, it looks like he's getting ready to sleep on the floor. Damn. I slip into the bathroom to change into sleep clothes, and I'm not surprised to find I'm wet enough to show through my underwear. Maybe this was a really bad idea, because not only is my heart doing stupid things around him, but apparently my pussy has decided to sabotage any sense I had left. This is absurd. If he wanted something, surely he would have taken this as an opportunity. This is just honour and duty and all that to him. Maybe if I keep telling myself that, then my body will chill the hell out. I peek my head out of the bathroom. "Is it okay if I shower?" I ask. "Sure, go right ahead." He doesn't even look in my direction, to my disappointment. After a few minutes of cold water running over my body, the flames have died down, and I'm thinking clearer. While I still have my heart pulling me in his direction without evidence, the feelings are reciprocated. At least I can go 5 seconds without thinking about hopping on his dick. Cold but clear-headed, I head back out, sitting up in bed long enough to let my hair dry some before laying down and closing my eyes, listening to the rhythmic sounds of Tarod's breathing. My last thought before unconsciousness takes me is, he was so insistent about me coming here and staying with him. That has to mean something, right? That thought was apparently enough to undo all the cold shower's hard work. Once I'm asleep, my unconscious mind runs rampant with the bubbling sexual frustrations and tensions I'd wrestled with ever since he stoked my flames back in that forest. I should have kept my distance from him after that. Instead, I let myself fall for him until my mind is saturated with thoughts and images that make me snap awake, feeling the edges of an almost orgasm slipping away as I ache for the real thing. When I look over at him, I see he's kicked off his blanket. I get up and resettle it over him. Part of me wants to curl up beside him, and not just because I'm irrepressibly horny. "You said you wanted to keep me safe, and that's why you wanted me to stay. But if it was my body or my heart that interested you..." I sigh. This is pointless and frustrating, so I turn around and go back to bed, cursing myself for letting my guard down around him.
Chapter 20. Tarod. What? If it was your body or your heart that interested me? What? I'd woken up a moment before because it sounded like she was moaning in her sleep. But after listening to her breathing and the sounds she was making for a short while, I realized it didn't sound distressed. And it made things very confusing. I wanted to know what she was dreaming. And I wanted to know if it was about me, though I shouldn't. But then she said just enough to get my mind going. I'm not entirely naive about the way things are between men and women. I know the things she and I could do together, how our bodies fit together. But ever since I tried to name the connection between us, and my mind conjured up the word sister, even though it didn't feel quite right, it's colored how I look at her, and made every time I thought about her body shuddering under mine and her screaming out my name feel dirty and wrong. But I thought that was just me having my own issues to deal with. I was almost starting to get a handle on the flood of emotions she stirred up in me, enough of a handle on them that I could push them down deep and hopefully ignore them. And then she had to say that. I don't know if what she meant was that she'd want to stay, or that it would make her want to run screaming from the base out into the world where danger lurks behind every tree and rock. I stare up at the ceiling, trying to think or not think. I'm not sure which would be the better option at this point, but it's driving me insane. While I'm not naive, I'm not very practiced in the art of courting women, except for one unique experience. Orc women are precious, guarded fiercely because they're the hope for our race, and they have the pick of any orc man they want. So when Ragash, one of the orc women of the clan, invited me to her bed, I accepted the honor. I had always had urges, and I was curious. I wasn't sure why she decided to choose me. I wasn't even a general then, just a lowly grunt, and the experience was, well, an experience. It felt good. I think we both had fun. She walked me through a few things that she liked, and it seemed like I did okay. But she never asked for me back. She later went on to find another orc man who must have suited her better. So, I didn't really pursue any sort of intimate relationships after that. I just had my work, climbing through the ranks and defeating the enemies of the clan, whether they were humans, orcs, or eventually dark elves. It consumed my life. Maybe that's why Ragash didn't seem interested in having me back. I didn't have time for her. But thinking about her just calls up all the images I've played over and over again in my head when I've had private moments to seek release by myself. But as I play the images over in my mind, Ragash, a very sturdy woman, starts to meld and shift, getting smaller and her skin shifting from a deep green to warm dark brown. I can see it now so clearly in my head, lying with Fiona, being inside her. And I don't know what to do with these thoughts. My cock stiffens until it strains the fabric of my pants. I feel a desperate ache for release welling in me. And she's so close. Just right there. She turned to the wall away from me. I could have offered we'd share that bed, but what would I do now if that were the case? I wouldn't want to be grinding my hard cock against her. Well, actually, right now, I very much would. But I'm so conflicted. I don't know what to label her as in my head. Given the torrid thoughts I have about her, Sister seems really wrong. But does that mean I'm rejecting a gift from the war god? Or did I misinterpret it at first? Am I being rational or just trying to justify my actions? I feel like there's a lot I still don't understand about any of this. Ragash might have taught me how to use my tongue to get her off, but my experience wasn't precisely instructive on how to approach a woman to see if she wants something more. I also know so little about human mating customs. I know several orcs who've taken human women as mates. Several of them are chieftains of the great tribes. It's not like it's forbidden, but I didn't have the time to figure out how to talk to orc women. Why would I think that I need to hone my ability to talk to human women? I want to scream. But if it was my body or my heart that interested you, what had she left unsaid? I could ask. It seems way too straightforward, though. Too much of a chance of rejection or scaring her off. If she does actually want me to want her in that way, then that's great. But if she doesn't, does that end up with her feeling trapped with a horny orc? I turn away from her, realizing I've been staring at the back of her head for probably half an hour now, and I don't want her to get that feeling she's being watched. I wait until her breathing is even before I get up. It's still early, but I have to get up and move. I feel wrong thinking about what her pussy tastes like while she's sleeping no more than 5 feet from me. I head out the door, closing it softly behind me. I need to clear my head so I can approach this question rationally. The night sky is cloudless, and I can see the stars spread out over me. But while the night sky is unclouded, my brain is in a fog. I have so many mixed feelings about Fiona. "Is everything okay, General?" one of the base guards asks. He's on patrol, but it seems like all he found was the general of the army looking to the sky for an answer. "Yes, everything is fine. I just needed some fresh air, that's all." "Very well. I'll leave you to it then," he says with a curt nod before he continues on his way. It's then that I realize that he can help me. "Guard?" He stops and turns back to me. "Yes, sir." I need someone to deliver breakfast to the humans staying in my house in the morning. I'm sure someone in the mess hall can take care of that, he says. His expression betrays a deep confusion about what I'm doing. But after he stares at me for a moment, he says, I'll let them know. Good. Thank you. I need to find something to do. Something that isn't being around Fiona. She's so tempting. I feel awful thinking about it. But if it was my body or my heart that interested you... Her words echo in my tortured mind. I felt like I was starting to get a handle on things, and then she had to say that and throw everything into chaos. It's torture. I just need to make sure she's cared for, make sure she is safe and fed and provided for. That has to be my goal. But even as I try to think of ways to make that happen with only minimal contact between us, I start to think that I should have never invited her here. It was so much simpler before I met her. But I can't lie to myself like that. I know that if she weren't here, I'd be worrying about her well-being, so I'd be even more miserable. Just can't win.
Chapter 21. Fiona. I've been here for 2 days, 2 of the longest and most miserable days of my life. Tarod is clearly avoiding me, and I don't know what to do about it. I hadn't seen it coming, of course. I have forced myself to admit that I like Tarod, and it seemed reasonable to hope that spending some time with him could be an enjoyable experience, even if my feelings are unrequited. He invited me, so naturally, I thought he wanted to spend time with me too. It seemed perfect at the time, and I still don't really understand why it wasn't. Instead, it has been awkward and uncomfortable. I feel so out of place. This isn't my home. This isn't where I belong. I was willing to ignore that because I thought I came here for a reason, to stay with Tarod until it was safe. Another thought had slowly trickled in after I agreed to a temporary visit. I don't belong here, but maybe I belong with him. Oh, what a mistake that notion was. Instead, he has been avoiding me this entire time, as though having to speak to me or look at me would be a fate worse than death. Then why did he insist I come here? None of this was my damn idea, and it's maddening to be stuck here now. He comes home late, waiting to sneak in when I am already asleep. I even try to stay awake, but he must somehow know when I have drifted off. He slips out early before I can catch him. I can't even begin to imagine when he actually gets any sleep. It seems like all of this hiding that he's doing must take up a big chunk of his time. I even tried to force myself awake at dawn, thinking for sure that I'd at least get a brief conversation with him, but he was already gone for the day, as though he couldn't get away from me fast enough. What happened between us? He was so insistent to have me here, and we had spent at least our meals together before we came here. Things were so different before and seemed to be going so well. I don't understand how everything has changed, just like that. I can't pinpoint what it was that spooked him. If it was like this when he asked me to visit, I never would have said yes. I wonder if he's embarrassed to be seen with a human, perhaps. Orcs and humans do have a rather fraught relationship, as a rule. But still, it's not a very good reason. If he felt that way, it would have been kinder to not bring me here at all. How could I know that he'd run so hot and cold? I miss the old Tarod, I lament, wondering if I did something. I tried to push him away before, declining his offers, and that didn't seem to bother him. Now that I gave in to what he wants, though, I am like the plague to him. Even when I seek him out, he just brushes me aside, making up excuses that he is too busy. I can't really force him to pay attention to me, I know. I just don't understand why I should have to. I didn't have to force him before. He nearly begged me to join him, and I had high hopes for what that meant. Now it feels like he does the bare minimum necessary, and avoids even that. For example, he doesn't bring food for me anymore. He has someone else deliver food. At least I don't starve, but it feels as though he's washed his hands of me completely. I just thought our relationship was different. I don't understand what I must have done wrong. Why is it like this now? I'd just as soon go back to my own home because this feels like torture. At least then I can forget about him entirely. If he's going to dismiss me like this, why keep me around? It's the second day that I've barely seen him. I sit around and stew on it for a while, feeling both sad and irritated. I miss having a purpose, and here I can't consult with Hazen or anyone in the war effort to distract myself. The more that I think, since I have nothing more to do, the more the emotion shifts into just plain irritated. If he has a problem, he could come out and say so. Who invites someone into their home, then ignores them? What the hell, Tarod? Deep down, I know that my feelings are hurt by his rejection. But it's easy to brush that aside, as I do feel that I've been somehow wronged. This behaviour seems mean and unnecessary, and I want some sort of vindication. I make up my mind that I've had enough. I'm not going to put up with it any longer. If he doesn't want to talk to me, I'm going to drag it out of him. I need answers. I deserve them, and I can get them myself. Like it or not, Tarod, here I come. I search around the base, asking to find out where he might be. It's quiet out, and most of the other orcs have no idea. They shrug their shoulders indifferently, and they either don't know or won't tell me. But that's all right. He won't get away from me that easily. I have all day. I think bitterly. And I've always been told that I'm nothing if not persistent. It takes me a while, but I do begin to get some responses. A few are false leads. But finally I find someone who suggests the training centre. With everything that I know about Tarod, this just sounds right. In fact, I don't know why I didn't think of it on my own. I tell them thank you politely, certain that I've finally found him. That's where he'll be, I just know it. I march myself over there, my mind made up. Though I'm much smaller than the orcs here, they move out of my way when they see me coming. They probably just don't want to tangle with a deranged human. I just laugh to myself, noticing their reaction. I can't really blame them, as they're right. I'm so furious it makes me feel a bit off-centre. Outside I storm up to the first orc I see. They seem surprised by my forcefulness, but don't hesitate to tell me that Tarod is in the equipment room. I push my way inside, a cloud of emotions swirling around me. My jaw is set and determined. I can't let him brush me off, not again. I peer into the equipment room. He is carefully and methodically cleaning his equipment. He doesn't see me, his back turned to me. I shake my head in frustration. I know that he doesn't have to clean the equipment. Someone else takes care of it. It's their job, and they'll probably clean it again as soon as he leaves anyway. Not to mention the slow way that he's moving. He's making it into a big labour, stretching the task out to waste time. It's just one more thing that he can do, rather than come home. It's one more excuse that he has in order to avoid me. It stabs my heart and my pride that he should be so eager to avoid me. But I push that aside, focusing instead on my anger. The more that I think about it, I convince myself that Tarod is being a giant jerk here. I'm not the arsehole, and I don't deserve any of this. I guess it just stings, because I really didn't expect him to be such an asshole. Maybe I didn't really know him at all. I march inside, ready to face him. I slam the door and lock it behind me. He can't get away from me now, I think triumphantly. He turns around at the sound, and his eyes widen in surprise. I can see the panicked look on his face when he realises that he is trapped here with me. It infuriates me, that I'm some kind of monster he needs to avoid, to be scared of. Me, a weak little human woman. If he's going to hide from me, I'll give him a reason to hide. I draw myself up to my full height. It's nothing compared to him, but I don't care. I'm angry. Why are you avoiding me? I snap at him, my amber eyes blazing.
Chapter 22. Tarod. Avoiding you? I was not expecting her. That tends to be the case when you're avoiding someone. You don't expect to run into them. Now I'm just stalling, trying to give my brain the time it needs to catch up with what just happened. I'd been so preoccupied with trying to find excuses to stay busy and not go home that I hadn't heard her until she locked me in. I don't like this trapped feeling. I'm not avoiding you, I'm just very busy. We should talk about this later. Don't bullshit me, Terod, okay? You're the one who asked me to come along, and you dragged me out here where I don't know anyone, and then you abandoned me. You gave me no tasks to do, so all I have to occupy myself with is sitting and thinking what I could have possibly done to make you hate me. Hate you? I don't hate you. You could have fooled me. You've avoided me like the plague. You only come home after I'm asleep. You're gone before I'm awake. When the fuck do you sleep? It really might be easier to have this conversation if I weren't so damn tired. The honest answer to her question is that I don't. I don't sleep. I haven't had a good night's rest since she got here. And when I do sleep, it's all lurid dreams intense enough to make me orgasm in my sleep, which is not something I want her to see. When I can't seem to form a coherent sentence, she continues. Do you have any idea how horrendously confused I've been? I can't figure you out. You were so attentive before, but then you get me here, and all of a sudden you have absolutely no time for me. I'm sorry, I've been so busy. Bullshit. What? I point to the equipment I was cleaning when my mind can't come up with anything better. Like that isn't someone else's job to do. You're a goddamn general. This is grunt work, and you know it. And I saw you. You were moving so slow, dragging it out to give you something to do so you wouldn't have to deal with me. I'm sorry. Don't fucking tell me you're sorry unless you actually plan to do something about it, because I don't know how much more of this I can take. Should I just go home? No, I don't want you to go, I say. I'm searching for the best thing to say. Then why are you avoiding me? Her voice breaks as she shouts, I'm confused. Tears well up in her amber eyes. She's pissed, and I hate myself right now for what I've done to her. But I also can't stop thinking about how gorgeous she is, and I want to do something that will make her happy, but I don't know what that is. This would be easier if I didn't have to talk. I'm the one who's confused, or you're not the only one. I'm sorry I've made this worse. Why did you bring me here? I told you. I want to protect you. Because you think it's your duty. Yes. Her eyes narrow. So I'm just your responsibility because I got you out of that prison. I don't know if this is what she wants to hear, or if it will make anything better, but I guess it's time to be honest. Yes. Then I shy. Sort of. Well, at first. I look at her trying to figure out what to say, but I can't get my mouth to work as my mind is flooded with images of kissing her tears away. What do you mean, at first? The expectation in her voice is killing me. What does she want from me? But if it was my body or my heart that interested you, I said I would protect you, and that I wasn't going to leave you. I made you that promise, and I want to keep it. But it was a very big promise to make, and I don't know why I did, or I didn't. I scrub at my face. I felt like there was this connection between us. That's why I want to protect you, and that's why I wanted you to come here. I can't read the emotion that flares in her eyes, but I've started, and if I stop now, I don't know if I'm ever going to be able to get this all out, so I have to keep going and just hope this is the right thing to do. And I tried to figure it out, and then you talked about losing your parents. I thought that was it, our connection. I've been very isolated a lot of my life, dedicated to my work and my responsibilities. And when you said that, I thought my dedication had paid off, that for all my sacrifice, the great war god had blessed me with you. Her brow furrows and I feel stupid saying it all out loud now, but I'm on a roll, and I'm sure if I stop here and can't go on, she's just going to be more pissed off at me. We're connected, orphans, fighting for our people. It made our bond make sense, and I knew I wanted to protect you. But it was more than just because I promised I would. I want to keep you safe, not because of a promise or duty, but because you're special to me. She takes a step closer and it seems like she's holding her breath, waiting for me to continue. And I tried to figure out what we were to each other, what we could be. I've been isolated and haven't had a lot of deep connections to people, so I struggled to find the words to express it. I suck in a deep breath, all of a sudden nervous and shameful. I thought you could be like a sister to me. She lets out the breath all out once in a scoffing sound and then shouts at me in disbelief. Sister? She looks like I may as well have just slapped her as she takes a step back away from me. Yes. Sister? Her mouth hangs open in shock, but it's too late to stop now. That's what I thought. But it wasn't right. I started thinking things that I couldn't make fit with that connection, and it felt wrong. I tried to push aside the awkward feelings, and it seemed like it was better for us. Then we had that argument about the bed, and I heard you that night. Her mouth slams shut, and her eyes go wide. You were moaning in your sleep. Fiona covers her face with her hands and turns away from me. I'm sorry. I didn't want to embarrass you, but I heard what you said. Oh, fuck. You heard that? She asks, turning back to me. And that's why you've been avoiding me? Yeah, kind of. Oh no. Tears are back. I'm sorry, I say. I wasn't trying to hear you. I just did. And I didn't know what to do. Because the problem is, well, like I said, I am confused. I tried to not think of you that way, but it hasn't worked. Think of me in what way? Like a sister? She asks, wiping her eyes. No. Well, yes. No. I scrub at my face, trying to gather my thoughts. I couldn't stop thinking about you in a way a man should definitely not be thinking about his sister. And I thought that what you didn't say was that it would be bad if I had any sort of ulterior motive for keeping you here. And I thought if I stayed away, I could stop. Stop what? This is embarrassing. Tarod, you thought you could stop what? Thinking about... I've been dreaming about you. She takes a step closer. And just say it. Having sex. I've been dreaming about it. So much so that... Never mind. No, you can't start that sentence and not finish it. I feel like I'm going to be sick, but it's also relieving to know that I am finally admitting the truth. It may push her away, but I've already done that. It can't get worse, so I have to hope that honesty makes it better. I've been having wet dreams about you, I grind out, and it's made me feel really dirty to think about you that way. I don't want you to feel trapped with some gross guy who keeps fantasizing about you. So if you want to leave because I make you uncomfortable, I'll assign an escort to take you home. I understand if you don't want to see me again.
Chapter 23. Fiona. I stare at Tarod, and he looks so embarrassed to admit he thinks of me exactly the way I want him to. This is a whole lot better than him thinking of me as a sister. That was news I wasn't ready to hear, and I sort of wish we'd both been more direct. I guess now it's my turn to finally be honest. Don't be stupid. I don't want to go. My voice softens a bit. That's how I want it. I like that you think about me that way. He just blinks at me slowly, like my words are in a foreign language or something. He wasn't expecting this response, which raises a whole lot of questions for me. But he still looks confused. Eventually he just says, "What?" I want you to want me like that. That's what I've been wanting since I got here. The thought finally clicks for him, and I can see his mind catching up to the conversation. Really? Yes, Tarod, really. I can't believe he had to put me on this roller coaster just to tell me that he has dirty thoughts about me. Was that supposed to be scandalous? Though I do appreciate you not wanting to make me feel uncomfortable, but avoiding me like that was making me very uncomfortable and angry. I thought maybe I disgusted you or something, like you were ashamed of having me around, that you didn't want to be seen with a human. No. Oh gods, no. I like being around you. I snort. Could have fooled me. I'm sorry, I really am. I thought I was doing the right thing. Well, you thought wrong, but I guess I can understand now where some of that confusion was coming from. I haven't been very forthcoming either. I take a deep breath. But what about more? Tarod was not prepared to have this conversation today. I don't know how long he had originally planned to avoid me. Still, I can see from his face that if he expected this conversation to ever happen, it was further in the future. More what? He asks. Do you just want me for sex or for more? I guess. Well, that's not inspiring. You guess? Tarod winces but says, I'm a general. I know war, fighting and order. My emotions. He snorts. They're as foreign to me as a kind, dark elf. I don't know how to... He trails off, gesturing back and forth in the air between us, as though he can manifest his thoughts that way. Unfortunately, he just looks like he's flailing. Oh God, is he a virgin? How innocent is this guy? Have sex? I offer. He stares at me aghast. I've had sex before. I mean, not a lot, but I understand the basics. What I meant was, I don't know what I'm feeling, the words for it. My heart races. Do you like me? He nods, and I take a step closer, my palms getting sweaty. Tarod, do you love me? His eyes grow wide. I don't know. I think... But how would I know? He winces, rushing to cover up what feels like another blunder to him. And I get that it's a big deal a lot of times, and I don't want to say something that is not true, but I know that I've never felt like this about anyone before. I place my hand in his. What are you feeling right now? That's the problem. I don't know the words. Don't try to put one word to it. What's it feel like when you hold my hand, even just your body? My heart beats faster, he says with a grin. Okay, is it good or bad? It's good, though I feel, just say it. Say what comes to your mind. I won't judge. I feel like I might throw up, but in a good way. I try to keep my face placid, but I obviously fail. You said you wouldn't judge. I'm sorry. I can't suppress a laugh. But that's not the most romantic way to describe butterflies in your stomach. What? It's just another way to describe that feeling. Go on. What else? See, now I feel that sort of tingle in the back of my skull that I'd get on the battlefield when something could go horribly wrong at any moment. Nervous. Do I make you nervous? Very. I look at Tarod. He's a big guy. The thought of me making him nervous sounds impossible, but I can see it on his face. He isn't lying, and it's not like nervousness doesn't come with the territory when it comes to something like love. You make me nervous too, but in a good way. I whisper without meaning to. It's getting hard to speak. I clear my throat and try again. I love you, I finally tell him, and he stiffens, his eyes huge. I force myself to keep going, knowing that Tarod has never seen emotional honesty. He doesn't know how to express his feelings, because no one has ever done that for him, including me. There's only one way we can move forward. We need to get everything off our chests. I realised I was starting to fall for you when you brought me dinner after we got back to the military base. You cared for me. In the woods, you protected me. At the base, you provided for me. It all made me fall even harder for you. I sigh. But, he's hanging on to my every word. But I fell for you because you are a hero. I grew up reading fairy tales about knights and damsels in distress. You were my knight in shining armour, someone who will rescue me. My throat gets tight. I've never had that. I don't know if he'd appreciate the irony of how my hero turned out to be the monster from someone else's story. He's supposed to be the one I'm rescued from. But as much as I love reading those stories, that's just what they are. Stories. This is my life, and even though it doesn't fit the mold, I don't want it to change. So, my knight's armour isn't shining, and he rides a hokin instead of a horse, and his skin is green. It makes him all the more charming to have him be the hero of my own little bizarre fairy tale. You rescued me, and you took care of me. I squeeze his hand. The last people who took care of me like that were my parents, and I'd grown used to that. I thought I was okay just taking care of myself, but it feels good to have someone else help carry the load. I still want to find a way to contribute. I don't have the mentality to be a kept woman. I'd go crazy without something to do, but I like not having to do it all myself. I rub the back of his hand against my cheek. So I thank you for taking care of me. I smile at him before my grin grows wider still, even when you were being an idiot and avoiding me. Tarod snorts. It does seem rather stupid now, doesn't it? I promise it all made sense before when I was doing it. Hindsight is 20/20. He cocks an eyebrow at me. What does that mean? It's a human expression. It means that looking back, things are clearer, such as me now realising how everything changed after I said that to you after I thought you were asleep, and maybe I should have realised the possibility that you could have been a light sleeper. He wipes the last of my tears from my cheeks. Well, I am a soldier. Sleeping lightly comes with the job. His fingers trail down my cheek. And yes, it was my turn to raise an eyebrow. Yes? What? I want you for more than just your body. I still don't know if I know anything about being for you what I'm supposed to be in these sorts of situations. I don't know what to do. I put you on this pedestal. I thought you were too good to want anything to do with me, so I never thought about what I'd do if you actually wanted something from me. You could start with kissing me. Try as I might, I can't suppress a laugh when Tarod stumbles back, looking almost scared. You need to relax, I say. Kissing you and relaxing are two separate things entirely. I'm not all that experienced either. My confession makes minimal difference in the tension wound through his body. We've got each other now. We can figure it out. Don't think about it. Don't worry. We both want this, right? So then kiss me. I take a step toward him, and I can see it in his eyes that he still has a million questions, but I feel like he gets a lot more answers by doing than thinking. So, I throw myself into his arms, and he catches me just like I knew he would. I wrap my arms around his neck and pull his mouth into mine, our eyes locking before falling closed as our lips finally meet.
Chapter 24. Tarod. There are things that I wanted to say to figure out, but suddenly she's in my arms and our lips meet, and all the rest of it suddenly seems so very distant. I'm still trying to come up with names for the swirl of emotions in me, but the thing at the forefront of my mind are all the places where our bodies touch. My hand slips under her ass to hold her up as her legs wrap around my waist. She kisses hungrily, and all the feelings I was having trouble putting into words flare to new life. I've never given much thought to the intensity of my desires. There were plenty of times that I felt the urge, and it took quiet moments to find some release by myself. I've wanted sex before. I don't think I'm all that different from the average orc man in that way, but I've never wanted someone the way I want Fiona right now. I sit on the edge of the equipment table as she straddles my hips, and I can feel the heat radiating from her. The hand that isn't holding her up starts to explore her body. It seems extremely rude to be thinking of another woman while Fiona is right here with me. But I try to recall every little thing Ragash said to me while we were together, everything she showed me that made her moan louder. I tease the skin along the bottom hem of Fiona's shirt. The way she moans into the place between our pressed lips is encouraging. I sneak my fingers a little higher, testing the waters. When she releases her grip from my neck and pulls back, I suddenly worry I got too presumptuous, and she's ready to tell me to stop. I hold on to her with both hands, not wanting to drop her. That seems like a displeasing way to end this. but I'm pleasantly surprised when she reaches down, grabs the bottom of her shirt, and lifts up. When she tosses her shirt to the floor, I marvel at the expanse of dark skin offset by the white bra she wears. Leaning back into my hands, she starts sliding a finger along the edge of the plain fabric, drawing my attention to her cleavage. Not that it needed much help. "Sorry, this isn't exactly the sexiest underwear in the world," she says, pulling my focus up to her face. "I think you look great, but it's not so much the clothes as the woman who's wearing them. I could be wearing less." She reaches behind herself and unclasps her bra before shrugging it off and letting it fall away from her body. "Better," she says before biting her lip. I don't have words. Just when it's getting good. The rest of this chapter is too hot for YouTube, apparently. Not to worry. Find the unabridged version and many other exciting offerings at worldsofprotheka.com. Use code YouTube30 for a great deal on the nitty-gritty details. Back to our story.
Chapter 25. Fiona. I don't mean to keep looking at his groin like it's going to split me open, but even as much as I want to have sex with Tarod, I can't help but feel a little intimidated by his size. I had sex once before with Chris, and while he was maybe a little above average for a human, he was not large. I don't know how big Terod is compared to other orcs, but he's massive compared to what I've experienced, and I'm a little apprehensive. "Don't worry, I'll go slow," he says as he approaches the bed. "Stop right there. Most of this chapter is too hot and spicy for YouTube. No worries, we've got you covered. Head over to worldsofprotheka.com for the unabridged mouth-watering version of our love story. Use code YouTube30 for all the best details. Now let's get back to it, shall we?" I've spent my entire life
The forest is not your safe space, little one.
training to be the perfect bride.
You can run, but
There is no avoiding my fate.
I've heard before that sometimes wearer can find one whose blood calls to them.
Bloodsong, it's called.
You understand why you're being punished, right, child?
It's you. You're the one.
You need to know your place.
I am a bringer of death. I knew nothing but darkness before you, but now I know what it is to bathe in the sun.
Why are you doing this? Where are you taking me?
Where no one will ever find you. Where you will be mine. Forever. Chapter 26. Tarod. After a week, Fiona and I still have to start a little slow each time we make love, but not nearly as much as we did our first time. And we do manage to have plenty of practice. It's incredible how much she stirs in me, and we just love being together. It's almost enough to make us forget about all the problems of the outside world. Almost. Some of my clanmates returned from the front lines with news of the assault led by Dog and Hyzen. "Report, soldier," I order one of my men. "We successfully raided and destroyed all the Dark Elf labs making the drones," he says. "And were there any survivors? Anyone else you were able to rescue?" I ask, knowing that Fiona will want to know once I give her an update. "We rescued about 300 humans in total. They're being sent back to their settlements, but the ones who had already been experimented on. There are a few things that can shake a veteran soldier, so to watch him shudder at the mention of the humans the Dark Elves had altered says a lot more about the situation than any words he might be able to come up with." "That bad?" "Yes. There's no honor in killing caged animals, but those that still had enough of themselves left begged us to end them. They didn't care how. We tried to make it quick." "And what about Nolrith?" "He managed to evade capture. There are still patrols out hunting for him, and the other Dark Elves involved." "So, we might not have seen the last of these things?" I ask. "We don't know, sir. The setups were very elaborate, and we don't know what all is in the concoction they were using. It could be hard to make, or it could not. We just have to wait and see. But at the very least, we delayed them using a drone army." "Thank you, soldier." Dismissed. I turn and walk back home to tell Fiona. She listens patiently as I tell her what the soldier said, but I can see the way the news is a mixed blessing for her. "At least we could save some of them," she says, unshed tears making her eyes shine. "I just wish Moloch had found something in the notes that could be a cure or something." I wrap my arms around her and tell her, "Last I heard, he's still working through it. He might find something in there that could help if we discover more of them." Fiona's bitter laugh chills my blood. I wish that was more comforting, but all I can think about is how I'd rather it just all be over. But I have a feeling it's not. But it could be, and at the very least, we have a victory to celebrate. I don't know if I feel much like celebrating. I wonder if she's thinking of Danny and all that she's seen. I almost regret telling her anything because I fear this is all my fault for even mentioning it. The knotted feeling in my gut intensifies as one thought surfaces above the other horrors. This is over as far as we know, and I did say that I wanted to have you stay until Dog and Hyzen were done. They essentially are. Do you want to go home?" She leans forward and kisses me. I am home. The heavy boulder that was on my chest is removed, and I can breathe again. You can't begin to understand how that makes me feel. "I might have better luck if you were better at expressing yourself," she says with a teasing grin. "I've always been much better with my actions than I have my words." "Oh, really?" She rests her hand on my leg, dangerously close to my cock. I slip my hand into hers and reluctantly stop her advances. "If we get started, I don't know if I'll be able to make it to the celebration. If you're not feeling like joining me, that's okay. But as the general, I should at least make an appearance celebrating the return of the troops." Fiona regards me for a moment before saying, "I suppose if you're not going to let me drag you into bed, then I can at least come with you to the party." That night, we walk into the center of the base, and there's already a crowd gathered. While we don't have as many humans as the Alliance's main base, as the war effort continues, there are more and more humans staying with us. It started with those who were training my men in the use of firearms, but now there are a few more who work directly in assaulting nearby targets. And they just as much deserve to be part of this celebration as the soldiers directly under my command. This isn't just about the one victory here, but that we need to celebrate survival against such a formidable foe. Ale flows like water, and I bring Fiona a tankard. She decided to wear a dress sized for her, but fashioned after those worn by orc women. I think she looks fantastic in it. Looking around, I can't help but notice she and I aren't the only couple crossing the orc-human divide. While there are still people who look down on the idea of orcs and humans mating, those people are in an ever-decreasing minority. I can see it on the faces of the assembled. Times are changing, and I want to take it a step in that direction, all in due time. "Do you want to dance?" I ask Fiona. She holds onto her tankard and says, "Maybe in a little bit. I think I need to relax a bit more first." I half regret telling her anything about the returning soldiers, but only half. She deserves to know. I just hope someday that the things she's seen won't haunt her quite as much. But it isn't long until she's laughing along with jokes the soldiers tell. She fits here. She fits in my life, and she already said she thinks of this place as home. Those are all good signs. Eventually, she stands and walks out to the crush of dancing bodies with me. The drums and shouts fill the air as we dance to victory, and to the future of both our peoples and, hopefully, the coming generation that will be a mix of the two. The bonfire in the center crackles as people pour out portions of their ale or toss in the choicest cuts of meat as sacrifices to the great war god, showing appreciation for granting us this victory over our enemies. Then, as the moon approaches its peak, I take Fiona in front of the fire, its warm light dancing across the sweat of her skin. She glows in this light. It's time for me to speak, but it's difficult when she takes my breath away. I clear my throat and turn to the crowd. We gather to celebrate a hard-won victory over the Dark Elves and their vile plots. We come together here, human and orc alike, to honor those who fought. All of you have played your role, but I wish to honor one person in particular. I feel Fiona stiffen next to me. Fiona King risked her life to get us the information about what the Dark Elves were doing. I had my doubts about the work of spies when I first heard, but I now understand the kind of bravery it takes to go behind enemy lines. I've known many brave women in my life, so take this to heart when I say she's the bravest woman I've met. I turn to her and smile before going to one knee and saying, "And that's why I'm asking you to be my mate. You're fearless, compassionate, and strong, and I want to be there to help you shoulder all that. Fiona King, I would be honored to have you by my side for the rest of my life. Will you be my mate?" A million emotions pass over her face before she says, "Yes." When she leans in to kiss me, I can't tell which is louder, the roar of blood in my ears or the roar of the cheering crowd.
Chapter 27. Fiona. As we dance, I receive many congratulations from orcs and humans for our decision to become mates. My head is still spinning slightly. I was at first chagrined when I realised Terod was talking about me. You don't decide to become a spy for public adulation, so I wasn't expecting it. And then, when he asked me to be his mate, that was an even bigger surprise. But not near as big as when I said yes without hesitation. My life has changed so rapidly in such a short amount of time. And yet this feels right. I didn't even have to think about it. I want to be with Tarod until the very end. It's not like I have absolutely no doubts or worries. We are in the middle of a war, and he's a general. Our lives are going to include some danger, but I can't think of anyone else that I'd want at my side while taking on those challenges. "Are you tired?" Terod asks me as I pull him away from the dancing. "No, I'm not tired. I just have a different way I'd like to celebrate you proposing tonight." It's adorable that it takes him about a minute to realise what I'm talking about. "Oh, well, by all means, lead the way." When we walk past his house, our house? Whatever. When we walk past, he says, "I think you made a wrong turn." I keep tugging on his hand. "I know where I'm going. Do you trust me?" "Yes," he says. We nod at the gate guards as we pass through the southern gate. I've learned the woods around the base over the last week as I started to learn how to hunt. Terod found me a wonderful teacher, and I've learned a lot, but I don't need to figure out how to track a deer tonight. I know the path I need to take. It's not far. As soon as I found it, I knew I had to bring Terod. I was just waiting for the right time. This seems like the perfect time. I lead him to a small mossy clearing next to a babbling brook. A large, sloped, moss-covered boulder rests in the middle. And beyond just the natural beauty of the place, that's why I wanted to bring him here. I didn't see the rock and instantly think, I want to get it on that. I originally thought of it as a good spot to rest, but ever since Terod and I first made love, it's only made me even more intensely interested in having sex with him. I can't get him out of my head. Not that I want to. And when the thought occurred to me, I tried climbing around the rock a bit, just to see. And it was sort of perfect for trying some positions that were difficult to achieve at home. When we step into the clearing, I pull my dress up and over my head and toss it to the side. I'm glad I decided to skip underwear today. And from the sudden intake of breath I hear behind me, I think Terod appreciates that choice as well. I turn around, and the outline of his length pressing against his pants is unmistakable. Again? We know you're disappointed that we can't share all the details with you, but there's one place you can get everything. Click on worldsofprotheka.com and use code YouTube30 for a fantastic deal on the uncut version. Now back to it.
Chapter 28. Terod. Fiona now thinks of my base as home, but that doesn't mean she no longer wants to see her family. So when it comes time to tell people of our plans to be bonded, we decide to deliver the news to her heart-sister Eileen in person. We reach the Beheader clan base around noon, just before it starts to rain. Eileen isn't a member of the Beheader clan, but she's Heisen's mate. She stayed there when he headed off with Dog on their quest to destroy the drone labs. I was just glad we found out she was there instead of traveling back to her and Fiona's settlement only to find she wasn't there. When we knock on the door to her temporary housing, she opens it beaming. "Fiona! Oh my God, come in quick!" Eileen hurries us inside just in time before the clouds open up and it starts pouring. Fiona and Eileen embrace, and Eileen says, "I'm so happy to see you. I heard about what happened with your assignment, but I couldn't get anyone to tell me what happened after you left the base camp. Heisen sent me a message saying he saw you, but he didn't give many details." It's almost as though Eileen only just notices me as she says, "Oh, hi. Sorry. I don't mean to ignore you. Eileen, this is Terod, my soon-to-be mate." Eileen's eyes go wide. "What? Mate? Oh my God. When did this happen?" "Just a few days ago." Fiona intertwines her fingers with mine. "He rescued me, and things just sort of happened." "Oh, your knight in shining armor." "Exactly." And then I notice how Fiona's eyes dart around the room. "Okay, so where's this baby I've heard so much about?" "Oh, he's down for a nap at the moment." Fiona makes an exaggerated pout. "I suppose I can wait a little longer to see him." "Oh, I'm sorry. You're just stuck with me until then." I realize I like Eileen already. She leads us into the living room and we sit on the couch, Fiona snuggled against me. "So, Heisen should be back soon, right? We were surprised when we heard you were here and still waiting for him," Fiona asks. "Yeah, I half expected that knock on the door to be him. He sent some people ahead to give me the news. They had to make a detour on the way home. They got word that a settlement had been attacked." "Which settlement?" I ask. "The Syracuse settlement." Something about that sounds familiar and I feel Fiona tense. Then it clicks. That was Noah's settlement. "Do you know what happened?" she asks. "No. No word from him since. Is everything okay?" I draw my arm around Fiona tighter. "We knew someone from there," she says quietly. "I'm so Eileen starts, but is interrupted by a baby crying. "Can I go get him?" Fiona asks, her eyes pleading. Eileen's eyebrows are pinched together sympathetically, but she seems to know how much it means to Fiona to meet her nephew. "Sure." When she heads out, I look at Eileen, wondering if it's totally inappropriate to ask her how hard it was to get pregnant. The sound of the baby's cry grows closer and closer. When Fiona comes in, holding him, she says, "I checked, and his diaper is fine. I think he's hungry." "Oh, come here, buddy," Eileen says, holding her arms out. Fiona passes the squirming child over, and Eileen pops open some buttons on her shirt and starts nursing the child. "Oh, I can go if you need." Eileen laughs. "Don't be embarrassed. Half the base has seen my boobs. When a baby is hungry, they're hungry, and it's nothing to be ashamed of." I relax, and Fiona sits at my side again. The more we talk, the easier it is to see the bond between Eileen and Fiona. And I watch the way Fiona fawns over the baby, who looks very orcish, except his skin is much paler like Eileen's with only a hint of the green from Heisen. He's a little smaller than an orc baby. I start to wonder if a child from Fiona and I would have beautiful brown skin like hers. The thought causes a twist in my gut. Don't get ahead of yourself. In my rush to propose to Fiona, I never thought to ask her if she even wanted kids. She seems very enamored with the baby, but that doesn't necessarily mean she wants one of her own. I'd always liked the idea of kids. I never had any clue who they'd be with, but now with Fiona, I can't help but think about the children we'd make. The baby finishes, and Eileen puts herself back together just as there's another knock on the door. She stands up and walks to the front door with the baby in her arms. From the squeal I hear from her, I guess it's Heisen. "Chieftain," I say when Heisen enters the room. "General Fiona, it's nice to see you again under much more pleasant circumstances." "Can you tell us what happened to the Syracuse settlement?" Fiona asks. Heisen's face turns grim. "Ah, I see that news has spread. Why don't we sit?" We gather around the kitchen table, He's in holding his son, but his expression is still grave. After we'd taken out the last of the drone labs, we heard rumors something had happened to the Syracuse settlement. So, since it wasn't that much out of our way after we took out the furthest lab, we went to investigate. Everyone was just gone. All of them that had been in the prison at the manor house, as well as the few people who weren't captured. They were just gone. "What do you think killed them?" I ask. "No, not killed. Just missing. Like the whole place just got up and left." "What do you think happened to them?" Fiona asks. Hyzen sighs. "I had no idea." Fiona's voice was full of trepidation. "I spoke with Malik before returning home. He said he finished translating most of Nolreth's research notes, and he was really anxious. Asked us for the map. He tenses up a little before saying, apparently the people at the manor house had already gone through the process. But they looked fine, Fiona says. The drone, the mutations, those were the failures. Still useful, but not the goal. Using them as a shock troop army was Plan B. When humans and orcs allied, they wanted infiltration units, sleeper agents. They might not even know what they're doing, but they've been programmed to cause destruction and weaken our efforts. He clears his throat. The Council is divided on how widely to release this information. They don't want this to undermine how the orcs view our human allies. We aren't sure of the exact numbers, and we don't know if there are others. The only reason I'm telling you this is because of your involvement with liberating them. If news gets out, people might suspect you are one of them. Why would they give me the information if I was one of them? That's why the Council doesn't suspect you, but that might not convince others. Any human who's been out there, with dark elves as a slave or captive, will be viewed as a threat if everyone finds out. Secrets don't stay secret long. I just want you to be prepared. Fiona's face is suddenly stone as she says, "Thank you for telling me. I hope this doesn't put you in an awkward position." He shakes his head. "I know you can be trusted. Your family, so I want to make sure you're safe. If word gets out, the Council will have more problems than the fact I told the spy who brought us the information." This visit had started out so happy, and as we leave to head back, it feels like everything is a lot heavier now. When we return home and I lay with Fiona, just holding her in my arms, I can't sleep. There are suddenly too many worries, too much struggle. And so I pray to the great war god and ask for protection. Not for me, but for Fiona. I appreciate what Hyzen told us, but now I feel like she blames herself somehow. She shouldn't. She had no way of knowing.
Chapter 29. Fiona. Do you want children? I'm barely done with breakfast when Tarod asks that question, and it catches me off guard. Had he asked me a few days ago, before I found out what the Nolreth process was actually for, I would have said yes without hesitation. But that was when I was more hopeful. The orc and human alliance gave us a chance against the dark elves, and perhaps a chance at lasting peace after. But now, that peace is less certain. I'd been half expecting the question. I saw the way he acted around Eileen's baby, and he kept looking at my stomach like he was expecting it to suddenly swell. Do you? I ask, already knowing the answer. I've always wanted kids, but I'd always been missing an essential part of that equation, he says with a grin. You could always adopt. I suppose you're right. But do you want to have children as in me putting a baby in you? Yes, I want kids. Adopted, biological, either. I've wanted kids, but things are really messed up right now with the sleeper drones out there. The information is going to get out. Either someone will talk, or something will happen, and people will demand answers. And it's not like people never had children during difficult times before. I open my mouth to say something, but I realise he's right. My parents had me when we were still getting raided by orcs. I wish they were still alive. I'd want to ask them if they had doubts, because I do want kids. I think of Eileen and Heisen's little boy and wonder what Tarod and my children would look like. And even though my parents' lives were cut short, I feel like I learned a lot from them in the time we had together. I could make a good mum. And Tarod is protective and caring, and I know he'd do everything to protect our children. I sigh. You're right. Yes, Tarod, I want to have kids. He stands and comes around to my side of the table. His kiss is tender and sweet as he places a hand on my stomach. Perhaps I've already put a child in you, he says. I'm not sure. Perhaps we should try again. I smile at him. If we start that now, I think we will be late. He pulls me to my feet. It's not like they could do the ceremony without us. Tarod's laugh fills the room, and I can't help but laugh with him. Yes, we live in uncertain times. There are a lot of unknowns on the horizon, but I can't let that stop us from living the life we deserve. We're two orphans who've been in search of a family to call our own. Now we have a chance to make one. We're going to make some beautiful babies. After I change into a dress fashioned after traditional Orc garb, Tarod and I leave the house, which I suddenly realise is way too small if we plan to have children. But there will be time for that. Even if Tarod managed to get me pregnant already, we still have plenty of time to figure that out. A few attendants have already gathered when we get to the courtyard at the centre of the base. Eileen is there with Hazen and the baby. A few of the other chieftains travelled to attend as well. I'm not sure if that means they really like us or they're waiting for me to spring a secret trap. When I see Malik, he's seated near the end on what would traditionally be my side of the audience. I'm not sure how to interpret that. But I walk up to him and say, Elder Malik, I'm so pleased you're here. I do love a good bonding ceremony. I missed my sons. He met someone after I travelled north to try and cement this alliance. He married a human woman as well. He looks off in the distance, and I realise he's looking to the south as though he can see all the way to Georgia. I knew about his son being left in charge of the Burning Suns tribe down there, though the wedding was new information. It's happening more and more, he says. I wait for him to elaborate, but when he doesn't, I ask, what is? Orcs bonding with humans. Humans marrying orcs. It's a good sign, I think. Loki says that many of the Burning Sun clan have done so, and the orcs seem to settle with these human women taming them. He smiles with a faraway look. I hope it means that our peace can survive the end of the Dark Elves. I take comfort in the fact that this man, with all his years of experience behind him, sees hope for the future. He was born on another world, the one ruled by the Dark Elves. If he's seen them at their most powerful and knows what they're capable of, but he still sees an end to this war, who am I to doubt it? It might be a silly thought, me just looking for a reason to hope, but I'll take it. I've seen a few orc bonding ceremonies before, so I know what to expect as the shaman of Tarod's tribe begins the ritual. He starts each part of it in Orcish, and then repeats it in English for the humans in attendance. It makes me wonder how that will change over time if Malik's hope holds out. Will humans learn Orcish, or will the rituals be done entirely in English? But that's a question for scholars, theologians, and future mixed marriages. After Tarod and I exchange promises of love, devotion, faithfulness, and support, the shaman chants, "O great war god, please bless this bond. If you see any reason these two should not be mates, let your will be known." There's a strange tension in the air, and the shaman gives their deity a moment to object. Perhaps it was something that happened on Protheka, where the gods made it known that they didn't approve, but I never heard of it happening on Earth. And yet, I still hold my breath waiting for some sign that things are not well in our little union. But the sky doesn't open up and rain blood or something, so I think we're good. The shaman then binds our hands using a cord braided with herbs and flowers. There is supposed to be a significance to each variety used, but I never got the chance to ask the shaman what it meant. When it comes time for our friends and family to wish us blessings, I get a little flutter any time any of them mentions children. Was Tarod expecting this? Is that why he asked? When Malik walks up, he looks at us for a moment in silence and then says, "I wish you both a long and happy union in an era of peace and prosperity." For some reason, that's the thing that causes a knot to form in my throat. I suddenly wonder if it's not usual for people to cry at orc weddings, because my hands are bound to Tarod's, and I have no way to wipe tears away. I'm just glad I'm not ugly crying. When the blessings are done, the shaman pours a circle of salt around us. "Now that this bond has been blessed, a pox on any who try to shatter this union," says the shaman. "Not only shall they fail, but they shall also incur the great war god's wrath." I stand there in silence with Tarod, hoping that it's true. Fiona and Tarod, you are now bonded, body and soul, many blessings upon you. With that, the shaman bows and steps back. And it's strange. The orcs say that their magic stopped working on Earth, but I swear I can feel this energy between Tarod and me. Something more than just us.
Chapter 30. Tarod. After thanking all the guests for their blessings, I take Fiona home. She has a wistful smile on her face as she looks at me with her amber eyes. "What?" I ask. "We're married." "We are." I kiss the tip of her nose. "How did that happen?" she asks. "I think you were there." She tilts her head as she stares up at me. It still doesn't feel entirely real. I pull her in for a kiss, and when our lips meet, her body goes limp, pressing into mine as I lift her into my arms. "Does that feel real?" I ask. "Very." "So, about those children we were talking about before the ceremony. We did get a lot of blessings for many children." "That we did," Fiona says. "Should we get to work on making them?" "Yes, please," she says, before pressing her lips into mine once more. I bring her to the bed and lay her down before unlacing her dress and helping pull it over her head. She's again gone without underwear, and I can't say that I mind this trend. Hold it. Can't finish what we started because this portion of the chapter is too hot for YouTube. You can find it at worldsofprotheka.com. Make sure to use code YouTube30 for a good deal on the unabridged details. Back to our story. Orcs. Gargoyles. Vampires. Ice monsters. Demons of the dark. These beasts seek war, destruction, and power. And there's only one thing that can tame them.
Love.
This is your chance to get the uncut and unabridged audiobook bundle.
No detail is spared.
Use discount code YouTube30 for an additional 30% off of the already discounted price.
Go to worldsofprotheka.com.
Get access to countless audiobooks and discounted bundles where I talk you through every last scene.
Protheka's magic is eternal. Audio bundles will make it immersive.